Talofa, malo soifua, kia ora, malo day, everyone, and all to the Polynesian people who are watching the Polynesianized podcast on this live digital kava session. I am Mr. Aotearoa coming live from South Auckland, New Zealand. A bit of a rainy and cloudy day today on this Friday. It is good to be back from
Mm.
what is it, the Aussie land,
The
the
land
past
down under,
few,
the land
the
down
land
under.
down under, for a wedding. So went with the family. So it's good to be back here in Aotearoa. Um, yeah, everything is going well. Tua, how's your side of the world going?
It's been great. It's been busy. Spent the day yesterday in Reno. Sometimes for work, I just do a day trip, fly out to
Okay,
Reno in the morning, come back in the evening or afternoon for a work trip. Things have been busy, but things have been good. It's good to have you back, Mr. Ateoroa. It
it's good to
was
be back.
the last couple of Kava sessions have been Lone
Mm,
Rangering
mm.
because as you mentioned, you've been in the land down under and Melbourne, right? You went to Melbourne,
Melbourne, yes, yep,
yes.
yep, Melbourne.
So as you went through your visits, Mussy, what was it like? I've never been to Melbourne, so
Ooh.
what's kind
Uh
of the feedback?
yeah. I've every time I go to Australia, I've only gone to New Sydney, mostly around Sydney area, New South Wales. So first time to go to the state of Victoria, Melbourne. It was a lot cooler. One thing I noticed, because every time I go to Australia, the toll lane is what I always remember. Like everywhere I went in Sydney, there's like toll just to go on this freeway here, freeway there, toll everywhere. Melbourne was not as much toll lanes, so that's one thing that just hit me. Those are the little things that I look for. But other than the weather and less toll lanes in Melbourne, it was good. Just got to
Hmm.
see some family and spend some time there. Enjoyed my time there, and yeah, getting back to reality and get back to work. This is only my second day getting back to work since coming back, so it's very interesting and take some time to get back. But yeah, it was a good trip.
No, that's great. Hopefully one day make out there to Melbourne and you went to the US Open or the Australian Open,
You
right?
went
So
to the
that was a
Australian
cool.
Open.
I saw
That
you
was pretty
sharing that,
cool.
so that's pretty cool. What was that like?
Uh, it was a good experience. My wife is into tennis, so one of the biggest tournaments in tennis. So I just thought it was good to go and check it out. The Australian Open. We went to the two matches that we did go were of course that involved USA. So we picked those two. One was with a ranked gentleman. His name is trying to think here, Francis Tiafoe. Did well. He won his game, and then of course the Venus Williams went to her
Oh
game
yeah,
at the age of 45.
that's to sell tickets. She's not gonna
Yeah.
win, but she's one of those Hall of Famers. So you bring her in because that
Yes.
sells tickets.
Yes. So 45, she didn't win, but I wasn't expecting her to win, but pretty cool to see. She is one of the icons there for the tennis sport. So yeah, those were the two matches I got to see, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. Glad I went there and witnessed that, and see I've been to a Grand Slam tournament, the Australian
Yeah,
Open. So
and honestly, that's something that I think I appreciate you sharing that, Mr. Atero, because I don't think some of our critics appreciate um the fact that we've seen good portions of the world. We've
mm,
seen many parts of Polynesia, the Pacific. And so I think that matters, that we've been around, we've been to Europe, you know, we've been throughout Polynesia, America. I don't know if you've been to Asia, but I know your wife has gone to Asia multiple
yeah.
times.
Hmm.
And so that 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 I think brings some value. That's one of the things we bring is that perspective. And I think that's why I wanted to kind of have you share that because I think that's important.
Yes. No, awesome. Awesome. And I just want to mention too before we kind of move on, to let all our viewers know that we are coming live to everyone from YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and Patreon. So we're really looking forward to kicking off this live digital cover session with a very interactive session. Marlon.
Yes, 100%. And going along with that theme, Mr. Atero, on housekeeping, appreciate all the paying members on YouTube. It really means a lot to us. We
Yeah.
um, we try to provide, especially our interviews. We give early access to
Yeah.
paying members. That's one of the ways that we kind of show our appreciation. Also, another way that we show our appreciation to Polynesia, to our paying members, is if you make a comment as a paying member, we bring your comment up to the front. And then also, if you want to have a question or a comment, that using the super chat goes a really long way.
Yep.
And hey, Mussy, it's
Yo.
as we get busy, we won't get to every comment, but here's a good funny comment, Mussy. Maybe you can have a answer for this one.
Hey, whatever this person is, the one and only Nicole. Maria AI Nicole. Hey, I think are you just talking about Tua and I? Huh? Don't bring all the rest of our Polynesian brothers and sisters. It's just
Ay.
say you're just referred to Tua and I. Eh?
Oh
Yeah.
Yahweh. Hey, that's why it's the one and only Nicole, but I think this one is Tuya Sasopo.
Tuya
What's
Sosopo. Oh
what's
yeah.
the Mentai Teo situation? What was the name of the girl or the fake
Oh,
was it Tuya Sasopo, or what was the last name of the Fariti?
that's the name of the last name, the Tuya Sosopo one. But I
Yeah.
don't know what name
I
the
forgot the
alias
first name.
name.
Yeah, I think that's this one. The one and only Nicole, I think, is
Oh, the thing is, hopefully, if we're
catfishing.
so fat, hopefully the Polynesian at least look good if they're fat. So hopefully we're not
Yeah.
bad looking too fat. Eh?
Ew. Ew. We're like the piece of bacon fat, the tasty, the good stuff. Hopefully we're not the junk stuff, but Malo Nicole.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That's a
Anyways,
funny
I
one.
could I couldn't help that. That was hilarious. You know. Um, so we have a very exciting program today. I'm really excited about the first set of videos that we're gonna do a reaction to, and Mr. Aotearoa, kind of give us some context for what's going on this year in New Zealand politics. It sounds like they announced
Yeah.
the elections. Kind of share that, and then we're gonna react to one of our favorite guys to listen to, um, Winston Peters. He has a good
Okay.
good good sense of humor, but he doesn't shy away from telling people what he thinks. But kind of give everybody some context what the political environment is in New Zealand right now.
Yeah, so at just this week, the Prime Minister of New Zealand announced the election for New Zealand that will happen in November 7th. So um, it's a little different compared to the US, where there's a certain date already. I think it's that first Tuesday or so that's kind of set every election cycle in the US. But here, no one really knew when the election is going to happen. They knew it was going to happen this year, but the Prime Minister announces it. So he announces November 7th. So everyone, pretty much all the political parties and everyone who wants to participate in the New Zealand election is aware of the date, and they are preparing for election and getting ready for a campaign to kind of happen. So that is what's going on in New Zealand. So it's going to be a campaign of keeping the current coalition. There's three coalition at the moment that's running this government, or it could be a different party with a different coalition. So that's the election kind of campaign going so far this year, pretty much kicking off this year. And yeah, that's kind of the update I have
Hey,
regarding the
Masi,
New
kind of,
Zealand
kind of, kind
politics.
of dive into the coalition, because here in the U.S. it's winner takes all.
Pretty
basically,
much.
which is why there's basically it boils down to a two-party system. A lot of um parliaments have coalition or like kind of like percentage wise. If you get enough
Hmm.
percentage of a vote, you get a seat. Kind of have everybody kind of understand what why a coalition is needed for governments in New Zealand and how that whole process works. On some one party can have 2% of the vote and get a couple people into parliament, where in the
Correct.
US you either win or you lose, right? If you
Yes.
win, you get in. If you lose, but in the New Zealand, you can have multiple people, quote unquote, win.
Correct. Correct. So if you're a political party and you're running and you don't get they call it the majority of the parliament seats or percentage within parliament, you have to work with the other parties that have a certain percentage to get you over to that amount for you to have the majority. So, for example, for let's take New Zealand as an example, that's happening right now. There's the is it the National Party of in New Zealand? That's the majority, and I think they hold maybe 28%, and then they add on to the ACT Party, which has I think around 12%, and then the New Zealand First has 7. And then you combine all those percentages, they give them the majority compared to the other opposition side, which is Labor, the Green, and the Maori Party. So they're all in the
Mm,
minority. With those three, they don't have enough um, percentage or votes from the people during the election to give them the majority. So it's the national ACT Party and the New Zealand First, they have enough votes. With them three together, they all have an agreement of what policies they're going to pass together. And at any time, if one coalition, let's just say, did not like what the party did or they didn't hold them to their promise while they were in government, they can pull out and then the government can go into to another new election if those that coalition does not hold. So this coalition has held for about 3 years now, 3 year this year. So that's kind of how it works. And there is times that when you're up when you have a party that has the majority votes from the people that you are able to have enough seats in government, you can go ahead and govern on yourself. But
mm,
that's it. All depends on how many votes the New Zealand public gives the party during the election. Because here in New Zealand, they vote. They have we have two votes: vote for the individual and then vote for the party. So you get two votes to vote, and it's the vote to the party that builds your percentage to see how many seats you
you
get
get
in, and then the political leader within that party can get to pick with in their kind of who will go in to represent
to
the
the
party
seats.
in these seats. Yes. So
Wow, I didn't realize that you can just vote for the party and let the party pick someone
yeah,
to fill that seat. So they give a
yeah,
lot of power to the party to
yes,
just
party.
determine, it's like, oh, we're not as concerned on the individual. We'll just pick the party, and then the party can pick
Yes.
whoever.
Well, yeah, and it does. It's almost like you know how like during presidential election the turnout tends to be a lot higher than
Hmm.
non-president because they deem the president election as almost like the leader of the party. It's kind of like here in New Zealand where the leadership takes has a big influence on people casting their party vote, is what they call it here. So yeah,
Interesting.
it's yeah.
Okay. With that being said, Mr. Ateroa, um, how many parties are out there, and which one captures the dreams and the hopes of Mr. Atearoa in the politics in New Zealand?
So the ones there's a lot of parties, but I'll name the ones that actually have got into parliament from my understanding. So just like what I mentioned before, National, New Zealand First, the ACT Party, Labor, Green Party, and the Maori Party. So it's six that I know
Six
of that
main
are
players.
six main players that have actually gotten to government. So within those six, I'm a more of a New Zealand First party supporter, mainly because they're social. Their social issues are in line to my values regarding traditional marriage, pro-life. Those are the two big ones, and they've all voted against it in those things. Um, so that's the main reason why I'm a New Zealand First party supporter, and I've actually met the leader of the New Zealand First, Winston um, Peters. Good guy, old school, but he's done a lot of good. And just me being in politics before and understanding the importance of campaigning, I helped the party campaign here in New Zealand, and also tried to influence some of the time when I was with the my former workplaces to come have him come over because they were all labor supporters. So just to get him and just to introduce and have his time to kind of share what his thoughts and the campaign message of New Zealand First, because I feel like it's a good one for New Zealand. Just like America does things for its interests, New Zealand should be doing things for its interests for a better prosperity. So that's kind of me, Dua. Unless you have any
No, that's
questions or
good.
anything.
I
Mm,
mean, you're our expert tonight on a lot of these things. And I want to get your thoughts. It feels like to me, Masi, when we grew up in Tonga, the New Zealand dollar was much stronger, and it
mm,
felt like the New Zealand economy. So we're talking like 80s and 90s. It felt like the New Zealand dollar and the New Zealand economy was like something as like a step up, right? We grew up in Tonga. We would go visit the United States, but the New Zealand dollar we would exchange, and it was still really strong. But it felt like, by the early 2000s, late 90s, like the New Zealand dollar was like kind of almost the same value as a paanga, and it
yeah.
and it didn't have the same like
Didn't say
punch
the
to it,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and and I look now at the New Zealand economy as I look at it more, and I wonder. I mean, if I don't know what's going on, and we're gonna react to some videos. A lot of them are of Winston Peters, because I you know how it is, the algorithm, right? You watch one
Mm,
video, then all of a sudden it keeps recommending a whole bunch, and they were New Zealand First, and I saved some of these videos, and I was like, oh, we'll wait on doing these reactions until Mr. Aotearoa comes back. Um, and so we're gonna react to some of those videos, but I just feel like New Zealand needs like a MAGA kind of message to it of
mm,
making it great again, because there was a time, or at least when we grew up, that New Zealand felt like an upgrade, right?
mm,
And
mm,
and I just, my last couple visits to New Zealand and going to Tonga, honestly, granted, New Zealand is more advanced, has more infrastructure, but when I went to Tonga and I go to New Zealand, it just felt like not a big difference to
mm.
to make a huge impact. Like if I were to live in the Pacific right now, I would choose to live in Tonga and then just fly to New Zealand and visit.
Forever,
That,
even.
yes. When
Mm,
when growing up, it was always thought to be the other way around. Go live in New Zealand and then ever to Tonga. But I'm kind of leaning more towards, if I were to move back to Polynesia or the Pacific, I would move to Tonga and then just visit New Zealand, which was
mm.
not the way I had that in my mind when I was younger. But any thoughts on that before we pull up a couple videos?
No, I did listen to Winston Peters. He said during that time, New Zealand was doing really well, especially in the 80s, 90s. It really changed kind of in the early 2000s. New Zealand per capita I think, was number three in the nation for quality of life and
In the
amount of
world, you mean?
in the world.
Yeah, because that's what I
Yes,
remember. Like New
in the
Zealand was
world
quality
for
of
its
food,
population.
quality of education,
Yes,
political stability, economy.
yeah,
Just had a lot of
yeah.
positives, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and disposable income. It was only like behind the U.S. and one other country, not sure where, but New Zealand was doing really well. But I think maybe the biggest changes, maybe three. If I had to put three things that have changed a lot in New Zealand was Number one, their energy. I think they've not been smart with the energy sector because energy have actually become very expensive. And especially in the progress of your civilization or your country, people when you have cheap energy, it allows you to do a lot more things. And some policies regarding New Zealand, um, not exporting some of their energy because they have some energy here regarding rare earth minerals and stuff that they could use to export and also some offshore sea fuel that they can extract that hasn't been tapped to kind of expand and grow the economy. I think that's another one that hasn't really helped. That's kind of made New Zealand kind of lag behind. The other one is probably their immigration, the increase of immigration. And it's fine when you have immigration, but when you have a mass immigration that's, let's just say that it's like a lot of just low skilled labor that's happening, and then you're relying on uncontrolled immigration to come in. It can affect your housing and infrastructure if you don't have the infrastructures to support it. That's probably another one. Um, the third one would probably be the manufacturing. A lot of manufacturing, kind of like in the U.S., and
Hmm.
that's what Trump is trying to bring back. He's
Outsourced it,
just
and
trying.
then yeah.
Yes, you gotta make some incentive to keep manufacturing businesses here. Just last year, there was a couple of businesses of like wood making and paper mills that actually shut down in the countryside, just because of expensive electricity, the energy, right? So I think the manufacturing has actually hurt a lot of the the blue collar workers here in New Zealand. That's probably not has helped with the prosperity of New Zealand to keep it going. And with the also with the income, and that when you rely a lot on other countries making your stuff, that that affects the prices and may increase the cost of living here and there because now you're going to use more energy to buy those things to come. That can probably
Mm,
affect, and also the standard of living and people keeping the money here in New Zealand with the manufacturer. So, those are just my thoughts on those things there, Tua. But that has changed. But cost of living in New Zealand, it especially in Auckland and some of the bigger cities in New Zealand is still very difficult for many families. So that will probably be the big campaign
big
going
issue.
on this year. Yeah, going on to
Okay.
this election year.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up, Mr. Altero, because I think this is important. What a lot of people need to understand, to me, I mean, I'm in the energy
Mm,
sector, right? Like that's energy infrastructure. That's where my experience is. That's where my background. And this graph, it tells you energy consumption and the income per capita. As you can see, there's no country that is low consuming of energy and high income. Everything is driven by energy,
mm,
right? If you have low energy consumption, that means you're not producing, that means you're not manufacturing, that means you don't have the infrastructure. So this is why energy and the cost of energy is a big deal, right? And the cheaper the energy, what it really means is cheaper energy not only means cheaper costs for goods, but it's cheaper to make goods because it takes energy in
mm,
manufacturing to make things. And so this is what I think a lot of people don't understand. It's like, there's a lot of discussion on the AI race, right? Everybody wants to go build data centers. Everybody goes to build all this stuff, but you know what they don't talk about, and they're finally realizing now: if you build the data center but you don't have
the word,
electricity, it
yeah.
doesn't matter, right? Your data center is useless if it doesn't have electrons to run the chips and the GPUs.
Quick question, Tua. Is you know those huge data centers, because you got to collect these data to, especially if you want efficient and a strong AI. Um, has is those data centers really solely on oil, or are they run on like renewable energy? How are those data centers being run at the moment?
Because the majority of the energy in America, and I believe around the world, is not renewables. The majority of these data centers are run on natural gas,
Natural
coal,
gas.
diesel,
Mm, okay.
right? Like that's what's really driving it. I mean, the renewable sector is growing, and I love solar and I love battery storage, but there are weaknesses for both, right? There's pros and cons
Mm,
in using the right technology at the right time, but the majority of the electrons produced in the world right now are from thermal, right, which is
mm,
combustion power
mm.
generation. And so that is something that is important right now. I mean, the end of the day, the electrons is who can make a cheap electron or electricity is who's going to win AI.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, heck yeah. Energy. Whoever can have the cheap
Oh,
uh
excuse me.
energy to run its country is gonna dominate the world pretty much.
No, no, really, because really it comes down to who can generate energy. Real quick here to recognize our paying members. Mel, always
Hey,
great to
hello
hear
Mel.
from you. Malo Mel for your support and appreciate it. So just a shout out to Mel. So with that being said, let's open up. Let's bring this back to the front here and let's open up a video from Mr. Peters himself.
Winston Peters.
Yes. Make
All
sure I
right.
have the volume up.
Right Honourable Winston Peters. Can I begin, first of all, by passing on my condolences to Edwin Perry and his family, a former Maori, an MP for New Zealand First, with a very proud tradition of representing his country as did his parents. The second thing I want to say is if you've just heard two speeches, one from Te Pare Maori and one from the Green Party, you can see that there is no sincerity in what they're saying because their speech had to be written for them. They came down there, not in a Maori way, just read out the dribble and thought it would be acceptable. And of course, he never stopped. Having had the first 2 minutes, he's never shut up ever since. Had the first 10 minutes, never shut up ever since. And as for the last speech from the Green Party, it can tell you why it is that for 53 years, since 1972 under the guise of the Value Party, they have never, ever been in cabinet. And they never will be. 53 years, never.
So the Green Party is like they've never been part of a ruling or coalition. Is that what he's saying there?
Is it yeah, I think he's saying it's the green. He mentioned the green and the Maori party, right? Because I
Yeah.
think yeah. Is he
Yeah.
referring to the green? Because if it's the green, I'm trying to think. Have they been in? They've actually supported. They've actually supported. I think the green has actually been in government, but I'm not sure with the Maori party. I'm not too sure regarding the history
I
if they've
think I
been.
saved a couple videos of the Green or a reaction to the Green Party, but the Green Party almost
Uh,
just sounds like a communist, like kind of
it's
party. It's kind of
it's
crazy.
it it's crazy. I mean, it's kind of like let's just say they're the close thing the analogy I can bring the Green Party is the same as what's that New York City mayor Mombandi kind
Oh
of
yeah,
attitude.
yeah. Like
Yes,
straight up, he's a
that's the
communist, right?
same level, same level. Yeah, there we go.
Where he's trying to
New
say,
York mayor.
we're going to step away from the chill of individualism and into the warmth of collectivism. And I'm like, okay, you do know that communism killed hundreds of millions of people,
Yeah,
whether it was from starvation or from, terminating them for opposition. So it's
correct.
some people never learn. But I mean, Winston Peters here, man, he does not mess around,
Yeah,
right? And he just
yeah.
goes, you guys can't even
He's an
speak. You
alpha.
guys
He's
have
an
some.
alpha.
Oh, yeah, he is
Yeah,
an alpha. That's a good
Yeah.
way to put it.
in cabinet, and you can see why. Now, can I just say very clearly, section Standing Order 417 was about a haka being haka occurring as the votes were being counted. That's the chronology. As the Green
This is important.
representative said, she's entirely wrong. Go and look at the Hansard, it's all there. The second thing is, countless people have done haka in this parliament. Countless people have done haka in this parliament. Now, before your time, sunshine, you're going to be here gone tomorrow. I've seen your type. Come.
See, when it was broadcast online, remember we had the guys from the offside where they're like, oh,
Correct.
they did the haka and it put Polynesian culture on the map, right? Like billions of views, and it was so bold. Well, then all of a sudden you listen to Winston Peters,
And he's a
and it was
Maori.
like, and he's a Maori, and he's saying, no, we've done the haka here many times,
Correct. Correct.
right? But they made it
Yeah.
sound like this was the first time ever, and it was so bold and so whatever. And then he's coming in and saying, no, it wasn't that the haka was the problem. It's when you chose to do the haka. We were supposed to be counting votes, and you
Correct.
break out into a haka. So really what it is they were like supporting chaos. They don't care about what's right. Instead, it really is just causing chaos and making a scene. And so that's what I'm kind of getting from Winston Peters here is we find out, I thought they were anti-haka in the parliament, but it sounds like it's happened many times before.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the main issue was the time they chose to do the haka was at a time when they were doing votes, which broke the house rules and
The protocol.
which the protocol, which the Winston Peters did not like, because it's almost like you tell somebody these are the rules, them knowing the rules of the house, and they still break it, knowing that they're gonna
Yeah.
do it no matter what. So he
And
didn't like
then
that attitude. Yeah.
exactly. And then to present it as we're being bold, right? We're
Yeah.
being oppressed in here in our own country because we're Maoris and we want to do our haka, and they were against it and tried to stop us. See how the turn of the events there? And I thought that was something interesting.
Come on. No one will remember you very shortly. But here he goes. But he's got a motor mouth. He's the only guy I know who can eat a banana sideways. There he is. But where he goes.
Dude, he always has like these funny comments. All right. I don't know if you remember, but a while back he asked some guy, I guess he had some drama with like maybe he was a politician. Can't remember if it was like some pictures of him or some activity. And Winston Peters goes, I just want to know, do the curtains match the carpet or something like that? What's it called? And I was like, oh, this guy. Now he's the only guy I know who can eat a banana sideways. Marie.
Funny.
He doesn't want to. We all heard him and songs, but no, off he goes. Now, haka have been done countless times in this parliament, but after first consulting the speaker so that the House and its timing is not disrupted. That's what happened here. There was no attempt whatsoever. Worse still, they told the media they're going to do it and didn't tell the speaker, did they? That's the truth, isn't it? Oh, am I hearing in denial? No, I'm not. That's the way they think they can behave. The Maori Party are a bunch of extremists, and Middle New Zealand and the Maori world has had enough of them. In fact, in the last 24 hours, the one in the cowboy hat who hates colonialism, the one that's shouting down there with the scribbles on his face,
with the scribbles on his face,
the guy that's got half the South Island hanging on his neck.
Point of order, Mr. Peters. This is a point of order. Taku te whirus.
E ai ki ngā tikanga o tēnei whare, o te
was merciless. Because I guess
Yeah.
the guy has like the tatatau all over his face.
Yes, the tattoo all over his face.
And where's the cowboy hat? He's like, oh, that
That's
guy
the-
wearing
the-
the cowboy hat with
Yeah.
scribbles on his face.
Yeah. He's
And
so,
half-
and that's the, yeah.
And half of South Island hanging from his neck. Probably has a big kahoa. But yeah, go ahead, Mr. Atero.
No. And that's the funny thing. Winston Peters always says, it's like, about that gentleman, right? He's so anti-colonialism and everything, and then he wears a cowboy hat and it's like giving confused messages, right? And he comes and and wears that, and then it's like, how can you say you hate these things, but then you wear the suits, and then you wear their shoes, and then you wear the hat? Like, come on now, you can't be that anti-colonialism if you're wearing their products, right? So, and no, and that's the funny thing. I admire Winston Peters because his generation, if they're he probably went through a lot, especially if there was some anti going with, with the Caucasian and the Maoris during that time, because he's been in government for 35 35 years, and he actually helped fund some of the crafts and the Maori shows that they do every
Mm.
year. And he also helped fund the Maori languages for preschool, and that a lot of these Maori party members probably grew up, or their kids have sent their kids to go and learn Maori. So he's actually, like, he's actually done a lot. And then it's just funny that how they're growing up and they don't see things. And that's, and that's the thing with education, right? You see you have a kid that's 17, then you send him off to university. He was conservative and goes to university and comes back, and then he's like a super
Oh,
ultra
woke.
liberal after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it I'm just trying to say that people can make ideology either a Maori one or an English one, whatever language. But it's kind of interesting, some of the cultural clashes that's kind of happening in New Zealand, with, like, especially with um, a conservative person like Winston Peters, compared to this new and upcoming generation that's supposedly speak the language and very cultural, but then in reality, a lot of their views and stuff is not very
Not
cultural
aligned.
view, for
Yeah.
not aligned with our cultural beliefs. So that's very interesting. Some of the clashes that's going on at the moment.
No, and I think and that's one of the things that stuck out to me, Mussy, when I was watching some of these videos, and why I wanted to kind of walk through it is this is something that's not just happening in New Zealand, it's happening in the US, it's happening in Tonga.
Mm.
I see a little bit in Samoa, but I'm not as familiar with Samoa where they're pushing like, oh, let the young people bring these young. Really, the reason why they're pushing the young people is not because they think the young people are the right choice. It's just they're trying to move away from conservative values, and they
Yeah.
know the young people have been heavily influenced by academia, by pop
And
culture to
they're perceived
move to the left.
yes, and they're perceived to be a little bit not as, they haven't shown, the young people haven't shown yet to be strong in their beliefs in certain customs or whatever, right? They want to test some of their power on some of the younger ones, so that's why they try to push women and the younger ones to try to get in there. And it's kind of like, there's this push against strong men with certain beliefs. That's what I feel like that's kind of
No,
going on.
100%. And one of the other things too is because identity politics is so strong right now, just because someone shares the same ethnic background as you does not automatically mean they have your best interest at heart,
Mm,
right? Like we have to be very careful that we don't just, oh, we're going to vote for this guy or this gal because they're brown and share the same backgrounds. Like, no, let the best ideas compete, right?
mm,
And that's what should drive us. And that's what we should be doing. I think you don't have the Polynesian empire, the Polynesian civilization if you just went in one way because oh, we share the same background. No. Ideas had to compete. And when ideas compete, the best ones rise to the top, and that's how you get a civilization that lasts thousands of years,
yeah.
right? Like that's the only way. Like I can't think of another way that a civilization or a government or a group of people have been successful over a long period of time if there wasn't a system or a structure to allow the best ideas to rise to the top. This is why we talk to people and they have the, the tufunga. That to
Yeah.
me, like we talk about tattoos, right, Masi? That kind
Yeah.
of like your feeling is, hey, there were certain families who developed good technique and provided a good product for
And
tattoos,
service.
and
Yep. Yep.
everybody said, "Oh, if you want to get a good tattoo, these are the tufungas you go to," and you
Yeah.
took some form of payment or whatever to them in exchange for that. I believe that happened. You had to have some kind of system like that in the Polynesian civilization in order for it to endure thousands of years, because it is only something similar to capitalism where you have competition for the best ideas. Because when we've seen the opposite of that, where ideas don't compete,
Mm,
things go bad, right? They don't get better when you just follow the first idea or the only idea dictated.
yeah.
Things don't go well. But when you have ideas compete, that's what makes me think traditionally in Polynesia, there was some kind of structure where if you had a good idea and you brought it to the table, you were rewarded with that. And it seems like rather than having it like in an open market in a business, like
Mm,
how like how capitalism has it, this was maintained in families. And it was like families maintained a certain knowledge, and it was kind of like a family business that
yeah.
this knowledge or this skill was kind of maintained and developed. But just some thoughts there on why this
Yeah.
is relevant to not only modern day but also kind of traditionally in Polynesia.
Yeah. No, and I'm gonna, when you were speaking to it, I was just thinking like even the you know the Maui clan. Do you know that title? You know that
Hmm.
idea of or knowledge of just traveling through the stars and ways to improve your sailing, navigating the ocean. I think anyone could have had the title Maui. Was that like a family thing, hierarchy? What's your understanding? Because
My
to me,
under
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, my understanding was it anyone whoever had the knowledge of mastering the sea, or was that past knowledge just passed from father to son kind of thing, or was that just a title? Hey, you're the master navigator of the Polynesian Empire. You have the title Maui, and then when that Maui's done, whoever I guess is perceived the next top navigator gets the Maui title. I don't know. That's what I'm kind of thinking because that's the whole competition there with services that or skill that you've developed throughout the years, and that you have a skill to move entire groups of people, or
Hmm.
even taking high, let's just say wealthy families to go, let's just say to a different country, whether that could be Asia, because there is, if you can master the seas in Polynesia, there's no way you can't master to go into Asia or to
Around the globe.
Southeast Asia, the
Yeah.
Americas, taking wealthy families who can sponsor your fleet and your ship to go. So I'm just thinking, even the ancient Polynesian days with the Maui, whoever had the Maui title, it could have been anyone from whatever family, whoever just had the access or had the skill developed throughout their years of navigating, could have that title Maui, which elevated them and their family. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes sense to
Yeah.
it or
What comes to mind, and according to the understanding that I have, is Maui was a title, right? And it was hereditary, and probably similar to the Tuitonga and so forth. The eldest son usually got that title. Now,
okay.
now this is where I think there is an opportunity to potentially explain what you're saying, Masi. Is, remember, that's just one title, and then it has a support system underneath it.
Mm,
Imagine if you have multiple sons and you have this vast empire and that knowledge. So what would you do? Oh, either it's the same thing you would do now. You have multiple sons. One son, the oldest son, gets that primary title, right? And then the other ones, they're still Ho'eiki. You would send them to other islands and say, hey, you're gonna go and you're gonna, leverage our influence to make axes or stuff in Haamoa. You're going to
Mm.
go to Fiji. You're going to oversee and represent us there to build Kalia, right? And you go to these other places. What is a potential way that this could have happened is the eldest Tangaloa remains on Tonga, Maui remains on Tongatapu because that's the head in the capital. Then siblings, cousins, or whatever could be sent. And I think Mel shared kind of like her research because he kind of shares that Tokelau was kind of really a regional hub for
Mm.
like going northwest and going north and even a little bit into Tahiti. It seems like Tokelau kind of served as the head for that state, so to speak, or that region. So in
Mm.
theory, you could have sent maybe a descendant of Maui to that area, and they were the specialists in understanding the routes in that area and maintaining that knowledge and being the connection back to West Polynesia, right? Just like we can see that, like in Samoa, that was like the gateway going into East Polynesia, right? Like whenever anything
Mm.
came from Eastern Polynesia, it possibly came from Eastern Polynesia into Rarotonga into Samoa, and that was the main routes there. And even amongst the navigators, there were some navigators who had their own unique skill sets or tools. Like we talk about Manua,
Mm.
the some of the oral history in Tonga says the first main family group that went there with the navigational knowledge, with that influence, was the Moa clan, and supposedly one of their techniques of finding land was having a rooster
Mm.
with them, and that was
Mm.
one of the ways they were able to, you know, it's funny, but that's hey hey from Moana. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, and going in there, but that's why the rooster or the chicken was such an important
Figure.
symbol for
Symbol.
them because that was one of their skill sets, but it could have been, descendants of Maui
Mm.
that
Okay.
were the Ha'amoa, and they went. So I can see how specialists and descendants from the Maui group could be positioned in different areas of the empire to kind of develop that knowledge, develop routes of trade in that region. Just like we would have, was it the Lemeki?
Lemeki
Lemeki,
clan. Yeah.
yeah,
Tufungas.
right? The Tufungas. The Tuitonga sent them to Fiji. Some of them were in, is it the Vava'u or Ha'apai? That one guy
Ha'apai.
in Tonga who he says he
Ha'ano, I
descends from
believe.
the
Mm.
from Lemeki clan, and their job was they would do all the repairs and the preparations before going on the long distance voyage,
Voyage.
right? But it's the same thing. It's a clan, it's a family that has a special skill, a special knowledge, and that knowledge is not just held by one person. It's kind of shared among them, but one gets the main title, and then you would take other descendants from that Ha'a and move them to Fiji, move them to
Different
this
around.
island. And let's say we're in Ha'amoa as well. We're doing a lot of exhibitions out to Eastern Polynesia. Put one of the Lemeki clan members
Mm.
over in Manua or in the Cook Islands or Larotonga, right? To
Mm.
be hey, whenever the ships come out there, we can do the repairs or whatever. But I mean, that's kind of what my thoughts are, Mussy, on that.
Okay. No, I was just curious because I wasn't too sure with the Ha'amaui if that was a father to son title or not. So that's why I was just kind of thinking out loud on that. So yeah. And then
Here's
what
a
what was your
here's an
thought? What?
interesting comment here, real quick, Mussy. What are your
Okay.
thoughts on this? And this is from Marietoa Samoa. He says, "Yeah, I heard the island of Puka Puka in the Cook Islands was pretty much a trading outpost for the Tuitonga, which was run by Samoan loyalists to the Tuitonga Empire." That's interesting.
Mm.
I've never heard that. What are your thoughts on that,
Yeah.
Mussy?
I think it was Puka Puka the one. I think we did have a short video
The
of
origin
Lalo
story there.
Lalo Tonga, yeah, gentleman saying with Puka Puka having some ruins and some
I think they
evidence
called it
of tombs.
Mangaya. There's Puka Puka
Mm.
and Mangaya that they had some ruins over there that
Oh,
they said
Bangaya.
were
Oh,
for,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. I think Mangaya could be a different island, but Pupuga could be another island unless Pupuga is within Mangaya. But I mean, yeah, I mean that's kind of I think what you shared, Tua. Um, everyone was working as part of the Polynesian nation, supporting the Tuitonga, whatever the affairs or supply or trades that were happening, and yeah, I mean, and then there were assassinations that happened if a family group didn't like what the Tuitonga was doing or whatever. So that's kind of how I think how the affairs went in the ancient times, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my thoughts there.
No, and that's the thing. That's the thing. And I appreciate you sharing that, Maria Toa. I think the only thing I would add to it, Maria Toa, is I had this kind of mentality as well when we started this whole podcast and this journey. Was there was the Tongan Empire, and then there was, Samoa was like this separate entity. But the more we've dug into it, Maria Toa, and it's kind of like just saying the loyalist to the Tuitonga. I don't see it as loyalists because they were the same family and the same people,
Mm,
right? Like that's kind of my perspective. It's just that was the structure that provided the network. So it's it's kind of like, to me, I'm starting to look at it as like it would be kind of silly in Tonga if we were to hear, oh, Homa had their own group and they had their own structure and they weren't part of Tonga Tapu, right? And say, oh,
mm,
they weren't loyalists to the Tuitongas. Like, well, they there's a lot of chiefs that married into the Tuitonga family and the Tui Hatakalaua and the Tui Kanukupolu.
mm,
So they really weren't a separate entity, right? They're really the same people. And so I would just
mm,
say that she's saying that they're loyalists to the Tuitonga. It's like they were the same people. The
mm,
Samoa was a very important part. We say the Tuitonga, and we automatically think, oh, Tonga, right? But we
correct.
need, in our perspective, is when we say Tuitonga, it's really the entire Polynesian nation. And to prove that point, Maria Toa, this is why I really changed my perspective. There were many Tuitongas, their mothers were Samoan. So let's use the example of Talakai Faiki, and we learned this speaking with Jake, and he's very knowledgeable on the oral history and the genealogy. He goes, you know that the mother of Talakai Faiki was Samoan, and that the village where Tuna and Fata attacked Talakai Faiki, was the village his mom was from.
Mm,
And because that's the village of his mom, he probably grew up with his mom, which means there's a good chance either Talakai Faiki grew up in that village in Samoa, or at the very least visited that village many times as a young kid, growing up as a prince, a son of the Tuitonga, who could have been an heir, but the Tuitonga has many children, and it just seemed to be each Tuitonga would select who would be the next Tuitonga. So Talakai
mm,
Faiki could have been one of how many potential heirs, and
mm,
get selected to be the Tuitonga. So this idea, so once you have that understanding of the genealogy, how can you say that the Tuitonga is being kicked out and was a foreign occupier when his blood relatives are in the village that he was at, and that's possibly where he grew up? How can you say you're kicking out a foreign entity? It's not. It's the same people. It's the same group. And really, the reason why we think the way we think now, and I used to think that way, it was because of colonization, right? Where everything got cut up, and now we can't help but reflexively think that way. Oh, Samoa was its own nation, Cook Islands was its own nation, Tonga. And so we
mm,
we really have to kind of be a little more open to the fact that this was not multiple nations, but a single nation under a political system that was a bunch of royal families spread out. Same thing with Uvea, right? When we spoke with Xiaoxi Ilayu, Masi, remember it was mind opening for me to learn that the reason why the Uvea warriors assassinated Takalawa is because they blamed Takalawa for the assassination of the Tuitonga before Takalawa, whose mother was from Uvea.
Mm,
And that's why they retaliated against Takalawa, is because they said, hey, you killed our king, right? And our
yeah.
king was the Tuitonga, but he was kind of extra special to us because why? He grew up with us. His mother is from Uvea. And then all of a sudden, you take that same this kind of perspective of Talakai Faiki in Samoa, and you take that same thing to the Tuitonga from Uvea, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there is no nation of Uvea and Futuna. That's just all part of the Tuitonga Empire.
Mm.
That's kind of the perspective there.
Nice
Any thoughts on
question,
that, Masi?
Marito. No, I was just thinking because right, the two stories. I'm just trying to understand here, like I'm trying to understand the dynamics of the two stories that we've kind of uncovered since doing the Polynesianized podcast with Talagai Faiki in Ha'amoa with the whole kind of dispute that happened. One was a religious one. What? That's the
Hmm.
other idea. The other one was he was cruel, and then I'm thinking he was extra cruel for some reason in Ha'amoa while he was there. And I'm just trying to think maybe when he was growing up with his mother, maybe because remember, I'm sure there was maybe other Samoan, maybe Ha'amoa women in the area that had kids because having multiple wives was a common practice. And who knows, maybe he had a bad experience growing up, and maybe that's why he was extra mean when he had the title that he could have been extra bossy or whatever. If that's the other idea, right? If because they say they revolted because he was extra cruel to them, and it could be he had other, maybe he grew up with some of the other kids, have siblings from other mothers in Ha'amoa that because I'm not surprised that especially kids, it's a very dangerous when you are when you have multiple wives and they all have sons, and families are trying to elevate their sons to be the next or groom to be the next Tuitonga and prepared, there's probably some ill treatment or
Hmm.
mistreatment happening. And I don't know if he had a certain way every time he went to Ha'amoa. Maybe some of his half siblings, his, or let's just say his other stepmothers, maybe within the Ha'amoa area, whatever. And he was never forgot those times and he was extra cruel for whatever reason. That I don't know. I'm just saying
Some
it's a
revenge, some
very
payback.
it's a very political thing if you're having if you're having multiple choices and there's multiple heirs to the throne. There's some sketchy stuff that probably was happening during those times if
Game
if
of
mothers were
Thrones
trying to
kind of stuff.
elevate. Yeah, if mothers are trying to elevate their sons to be the next heir of the most powerful title in Polynesia. And probably not only it doesn't end with the mothers, but it's the mothers kainga or family
Mhm.
ties wherever they went. Yeah, I don't know. There's stuff like that that happens if that's the idea. Because
Yeah,
right, those are the
Masi.
two ideas we come
And,
if the ill treatment and the religion. But I'm just thinking out loud. Why
and we
would
gotta
why would Talagai Faiki be so cruel if that's
cruel like
the
that. Yeah. And here's
yes,
here's another potential example, Masi. Remember, it was not unheard of for the Tuitonga to marry two sisters.
yes, yes,
Okay. Now
yeah,
let's imagine something similar happened with Talakai Faiki, his mom, and an aunt. And let's
mm,
say his mom maybe was not treated the best
mm,
and people were rude because they had their favorite, which was another sister. And maybe because and once he gets selected, and that's where we have the story. Well, the reason why we can say that is because Tapuosi, there's a story of Tapuosi, the Tuitonga, who brought the Tuitonga's residents back to Tongatapu. He
yeah,
told his two sons, who were from two wives that were sisters,
sisters, yeah,
says, The first one that I see between you two to come to Tonga is who I'm gonna name the Tuitonga. That's where Uraki Mata and the Telea, whose Telea becomes the Tuitonga. So you have a potential where, let's say, Talakai Faiki comes from a less favorable sister
Yep.
back in Samoa, but that's who gets selected to be the Tuitonga, and he's coming back to exact some revenge. Who knows? It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny you brought up that story with Tapu Osi and his wives, the two sisters, and that's two sisters from Haamoa. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's funny.
Yeah. So once again, appreciate the comment there, Maria Toa, but just some thoughts there.
Yeah.
Let's come back to Mr. Peters.
All right.
Whakapara hoko o te tangata kāre whakaingia. Ko tāna I whakapara hoko ai I tō mātou tū, mā te iwi Māori ia e whakawā I roto I ngā.
Oh, there's AOC 2.0. The girl. Remember
the haka that went viral.
the Haka girl. Remember when we watched the video of her contribution to her community was the community garden? And
Yeah.
the community garden looked dead and it was tiny. I was like, so like, how are you gonna feed a community with that? It's like if I was like her PR person, I was like, guys, don't send her to this garden. Just go meet her at Starbucks. Because this does not look good. You know? I don't know.
No, that's the community garden only it's only good once in New Zealand and America and Australia to the community gardens is what we do now. Once you
Yeah.
leave Tonga, Samoa, and the other islands, it's community gardens. That's what we do.
Yeah, just for decoration.
Tātou, tēnā tātou.
Personal reflection.
I love how the over here it's very energetic and colorful. Scribbles,
Thank you,
scribbles.
Mr. Ferris. I think the point that's being made here is that Mr. Peters' remark about Mr. YTT is rather
Mr.
disparaging,
Scribbles.
and so I invite Mr. Peters to refrain from comments like that and to actually withdraw and apologise, please.
Pardon? Apologise for what? Would you itemise what you want me to apologise for?
Well, Mr. Ferris has indicated the reference to the tamako that Mr. YTT has, and so I invite Mr. Peters to
If
withdraw.
I've misdescribed his tamoko, I apologise. I might easily do that. But the rest of it, I hope, is understood to be true. This person that hates Western values and wears cowboy hats in this parliament is, as I say, an extremist. And the Maori world has had enough in a poll recently. The majority of New Zealanders massively said that either the Select Committee's finding was correct or should be more severe. Not less severe, more severe. And out there in ordinary New Zealand, they understand what we're doing. New Zealand is a democracy, and whether the Party Maori like it or not, and using Maori culture as an excuse for their disgraceful behaviour is an insult to Maoridom. Yeah. Some of us were working for Maori before you were born. They've got no record of done one thing. Not one of those people can rise up in this house and tell you one thing they've ever done for Maori, apart from bleeding Maori resources in a marae up in Auckland. Apart from...
So it sounds like they were under investigation, the Maori people, the Maori party, for like misusing funds.
Misusing funds, and not only that, they've actually used like a Maori business and taken their names to help them in their registering votes of people. So that's
like Minnesota
that's
2.0. Is this Minnesota 2.0 going on here?
To help the Maori party, and there's some other investigations happening within some Maori businesses that are using government money to help with their campaign. So kind of like a Minnesota using the Somalis people to help fund Democratic campaigns
activities. No, and that's the thing. This is why I'm always skeptical with someone who brings identity politics as their rallying cry. Is if that's the when it it's the easy way out, or it's the cheap idea to say, "Oh, because I'm Maori, you should
Yeah.
vote for me because I'm Maori." It's like, is that even an idea? Is that even like a vision? Like, I'm always skeptical about that, because a lot of times that's what it leads to. Is it attracts, because it's such an easy message, and it's so attractive emotionally, that you can get people in the short term to just vote for you, and you get power and authority. And we've seen this in Tonga, right?
Hmm.
The king's oppressive. Vote for me, and I will get in there and I'll fix everything for you. And then you vote for them, they get them in, and then everybody's like, "What the heck did we get ourselves into?" You get rid of them, and then they've never been in power again, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always skeptical when someone just comes in and says, "Vote for me because of my quote unquote identity politics," rather than a vision and ideas that are competing solely on the basis of the idea and the values that the ideas are trying to portray.
Mm. Yeah. No, exactly. Always got to be weary, man. Always got to be weary.
Yep.
Far from fleecing the Maori people out in South and West Auckland. It's all there. Hundreds of millions of dollars fleeced off the Maori people. But I'm telling you what, the teats just run dry. We're not taking that bill anymore. You got the law coming for you, and you can shout as much as you like, but your damn court's going to be coming. No will be Maori
mercy.
or non-Maori should accept the behaviour or the intent of this party of absolute extremists, screaming out that everybody else in the parliament is here only by their behest. Have a look in the mirror. Mr. Ferris, look in the mirror. What is the majority of your DNA? What's the majority of your DNA? Well, if you're disgraced by if you're disgraced by your European DNA, we over here are not. We are proud of all sides of our background because we are New Zealander. We are New Zealanders first and foremost. And as for blood quantum, if the cowboy hat wearer is an example of blood quantum, I'm going to a new biology class. I'm heading off to new biology class.
What are your thoughts on that, Masi? Where he says we're not just proud of our Maori heritage, we're proud of our European heritage as well. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the people that I see that are identity politics and kind of lead that story,
Hmm.
many of them are of mixed heritage, but they'll totally deny, this part of the heritage, and throw them under the bus, feel sorry for their ancestors, and they only highlight one side, right? Like, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that? Like, what? I don't know. I have my own thoughts, but what do you think?
No, no. I remember coming across this one meme, which I thought was hilarious. The most racist people were like these black ladies marrying to white men, like Kamala Harris, and
Mm.
what is it? I guess Elon Omar. I guess she's with a Palangi guy.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
what's? Yeah. So they're like, and it's so weird. And then like some of the like strong conservative or have traditional views were like black couples and just like these different, but like there's like what's so weird with these mixed race that only identify, they say they hate the other one, but then they're like
that's who they
married to the
marry.
other. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, it just shows you it's a it's just a place to receive and be put in a place of position of authority and power
Mhm.
to make benefit for either themselves or for a business or for whatever they run, just like with the whole fraudulent Somali thing that's kind of going on in Minnesota, that 90% of the fraud happening within that state of Minnesota are Somalis,
Somalis,
and
yeah.
then the the leader of that community is that Elon Omar, which is always identity politics. So I think what you said is just an easy way to get in, and people fall for it because just for whatever reason that they feel like they've been mistreated in their lives or whatever. that's happened that it's easy to grasp and easy to blame the other race for your troubles in your personal lives and personal choices that you've probably made. So I think
Yeah.
it's just an easy trap, an easy way for people to follow, um, and stick to and make sense. It's an easy message to create, and I think that's the hard thing, to distribute a consistent message to the masses. That's one of the easiest ways to do it, is identity politics. So
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
and
know. That's just
that's
me.
why I'm always wary when someone comes with identity politics, because for me, the best I can give them is they believe it sincerely and they're naive, right?
Mm.
Like that's the best I can give them. This is why, what's her name? Who's the head of the agency, the Samoan girl,
Oh, Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. This is why I have a lot of respect for Tulsi Gabbard, right?
Yeah.
Like she was surrounded in that environment of being liberal, and we have to stick together and help our people. I can
Yep.
respect that. I can understand that. But once she realized that that was being leveraged
Yep.
by crazy liberals just to suck the votes, and then they'll be the first ones to ignore you if they find another person that's easier to sell the story and the vote to. They'll just cut you off, sacrifice you, and go to the next person. That's why Tulsi, I do admire her for that, because she stuck up and spoke what she truly believed. And so yeah, that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I think I really do think respect's got to be given to Mr. Peters here, is because he is not about selling identity politics. He seems to be driven by being reasonable, doing what's practical, and then calling
Yep.
out those who are taking advantage of people through a easy message like identity politics, that it seems like the Maori party here is kind of, or he's accusing them of selling.
Yeah. The Maori and the Greens, they're definitely in that identity politics, and that's why Winston Peters is so important in this makeup of government, because only a Maori or only a Tongan Polynesian can see somebody, or let's just say another minority can see somebody using that leverage to try to do an identity politics to
And
get
try to
a position,
battle it.
try to battle it, and that's why. Just imagine if there was no Winston Peters, or somebody with his caliber to kind of at least at least hold these people accountable. Because can you think you will see I can't see a New Zealand Caucasian having this kind of
Oh, they would
debate.
dice him up as a
They
racist and everything and
there
spit him
and
out.
there is that, and that is a real thing. And that's probably what's killing the West. There's a lot of there's a lot of people who are, let's just say, who are not from that ethnic background, that don't, what they call it, the white guilt. And they
Yeah,
just they just cuddle, and then they just don't say anything when you know that's wrong. That's the
yeah.
funny thing, right? So that's
No,
why
100%.
Winston Peters sees this game that's going on, and he's just giving it to them. He's
Yeah,
not
and
falling
and
for
and
it.
and he is, I can see, hear, and feel some of his frustration, because he's like, dude, we've been fighting for this for how long? And then you guys are gonna come and just take all the benefits of what we've been fighting for, and then totally undercut and potentially ruin everything that
Mm,
they've been building for decades. This is kind of similar to some of the um that the alphabet mafia, the LGBTQ,
eh,
some
eh.
of the lesbian and gays who are really frustrated that they added the other letters, is because they said, dude, all we wanted was, you know, maybe marriage or some kind of legal system. And now they've taken that whole message to allow transgender and all this other crazy stuff that people don't always, to force people on those things.
Well, like what they said, you crack a door open, you're gonna allow a lot of things. It's the same. It's the same talk. Unfortunately, Winston Peters is just trying to preserve what he's able to build to help the Maori community. Because just imagine if there was, that's what happens when you're colonized, right? You have these things come in, and you're just trying to preserve what you have because you can't change the past. So people like the Maori Party who are really just trying to, because right there they were trying to have a different Maori parliament and try to make everything Maori. When how can you do that when you're like right now it's the Caucasian making up the most of the population. The Asians have probably surpassed the Maori, and this is why
especially with
Maori
the
need to
Indians,
do a
right?
lot more.
That with the Asians,
Indians, yeah,
Indians.
they put the Chinese and Indians, that they consider them as Asians. That's one group, and that's why it's so important. Then they separate the Maori and they call it Pacific Islanders. But just to help with the Maori numbers, Maoris need to do a lot more to, let's just say, integrate with the rest of the Polynesia peoples, because we are one people. But the more they keep going off and doing their own little like activism at every single thing. Activism, there's some parts to be to 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 kind of rebel, not rebel, but like, what do you call, show your dislike to a certain policy. It's good to let it know in the streets. But if you're like protesting every single thing, like trying to seek more energy independent and trying to build infrastructure, and you're always protesting on those things, yeah, it's not really helpful. And there's a lot of work that Maori need to do to integrate with Polynesia here so that we can be more united. And this whole kind of separating thing, and you've seen it, Tua, when we did our little segment of the Christian Maori lady, how many Maoris think that we're different from rest of
Yeah,
Polynesia. So
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say. There's a Maoris need to, just to help for their sake in number wise, to build their power in the voting of their representatives into government. They need to integrate a lot more with the rest of their brothers and sisters in
And
Polynesia.
exactly, and we have so much in common that, like, to
Yeah.
me, that's a no-brainer. Like, why would you try and say, "Oh yeah, we're Maoris and you're Pacific Islander?" And I was like, "Wait, dude, you're in the Pacific. You're on an island.
Hmm.
You're a Pacific Islander. You're a Polynesian too. We're all the same group." But yeah, but it's because of identity politics. Once you fall in that trap, you don't learn any other moves. You don't find anything to be creative and think out of the
Yeah.
box. You just fall back to the easy button, play the identity politics.
Can't help
Hmm.
yourself, see? Unlike the word on the marae.
This is a
On the
good
marae,
point.
they hear you out. This so-called epitome of my behaviour, tell him to keep his mouth shut for 5 minutes. He's been minimally trained on the marae, just shows you what little they know about the marae. On the marae, you hear the other side out. Don't just shut your stupid head off. All right?
That's an important point.
Yeah, that's a good point, right?
If you say this is about Maori tradition and recognizing it, that's an important part. How often would it be treated, Masi, in a traditional setting, let's say a taumafakava or something, and someone comes yelling like that?
Mm.
Is that the traditional way of carrying out the kava ceremony and traditional things? And Winston Peters bringing up a good point. You say you want to bring Maori um, culture and values, and then you do this. That's not Maori culture and values. That's not how it's done on the marae. That's why, like I said, these people, they want chaos. That's really what they want. They're not interested in doing what's right. They want chaos.
Yeah.
And if the
Yeah.
chaos is doing the haka and then selling it like, "Oh, we're being oppressed, they won't let us do the haka." And then Winston Peter goes, "Dude, we've done the haka here a million times. Has nothing to do with the haka. Is you chose the most disruptive and the most disrespectful time to do a haka, right?"
Mm.
And that's the problem. And so,
Mm,
yeah, I thought that was interesting on the Marai concept. Anything to add there,
yeah.
Masi?
No, very, very interesting. It's almost like saying if somebody's so in tune with their culture, right? Why are you picking and choosing when to exercise that culture? And that's what Winston Peters is trying to say in the Marai, in a you know, in the Maori sense. You're always giving the opposition an opportunity to discuss, and then you almost have a discussion that way, but not trying to yell out and trying to cause the other person to or let's just say cause the other person to intimidate them so they won't finish what they're speaking is a childless play, and it's not not a Maori cultural behavior to display. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And really, why is it that that's so important in the Polynesian culture that we hear the other side out and that there's order and there's structure? Because once you head into chaos, war comes and things get ugly very quickly. There's a
mm,
reason why in our Polynesian tradition there is structure and there is order, is because when you deviate from that, things go bad very quickly.
messy,
Yes, right?
dysfunctional, unorganized.
Dysfunctional. And then all of a sudden, the problem of not hearing each other is nothing compared to when violence and chaos and economic destruction happens, and everyone loses at that point. So I think that's important to remember.
Mm,
They don't want democracy, they want anarchy.
There we go.
They
See?
don't want one country, they don't want one law, they don't want one people, they want separatism, division, and laws based on race. And they stated specifically, day after day, but ordinary hard-working Maori are finding them out. The high mark for these people are come and gone. I go back and think of 1867, since the first Maori arrived in this parliament. They all came here all down those decades, over centuries, to Pena Sharples and Tariana Turia and Flavel. They all came here and understood that Parliament's got a protocol which they respected, until this bunch turns up. Sheer utter contempt. Sheer utter contempt for the whole institution. Sheer utter contempt. This is the product. This is a product of feeble minds and bad sociology classes at university. They are the advocates of Marxism and every other damn thing.
100%. See, and that's, I'm glad he calls them out because that's literally what they are.
mm,
They don't care about the individual and what's right for the individual and everybody overall. They just want chaos. They want their ideology, which, whether they accept it or not, is heavily aligned with Marxism, which once again leads to suffering for the majority of the
mm.
people. Any thoughts, anything
No.
to add there, Mussy?
Yeah, no, and what they really want is they want the rest of people who are non-Maori to work and pay for whatever they, because they're entitled to, this is their land, that everyone is living here in New Zealand, that they all should pay some form of payment to all people who think like them. But that's what I'm thinking. That's what they
Yeah,
really want because
that's
they
the
see,
ideology.
but
Give me
that's
something
the
that I
island,
haven't earned.
and because I'm entitled to be here on this land, when I was like, well, that's the other idea here is you can only have that if you had, if your ancestors didn't lose the war with the whole, they call them the settlers. So you already lost that hope. So right now you're in a place that you've got to come to understanding that, especially when you have no military. New Zealand has a little military, but it's purely for humanitarian work kind of thing. But when you're living with people who are different races, you've got to work together. But trying to separate, and you're the number three out of the races, of the ethnic groups. I don't know. I'm trying to understand. They're trying to use the Western law to force people to to pay them or
Reparation.
people who think like the reparation so they can live their styles and not do any work while everyone builds the country moving forward. That's really what they're trying to get out of this whole identity politics. And Winston Peters is calling them out on it.
Yeah. And And if anyone is under any illusion that if Polynesians had the advanced technology, had the power, would they have behaved differently? Well, we have the Maori and the Moriori example, where the Maoris had the power, they had the will in war, and what did they do? They basically slaughtered the Moriori people in the Chatham Islands. So
Mm.
just so keep that in mind, that if the roles were reversed, there's a high probability that if the Maori had the power and the capability and they could expand their influence and colonize, they would have. That is human nature. That's not a colonialism issue.
Mm.
That's just a human nature issue,
Mm.
right? And it's the
Mm.
same thing when the Maoris came to the Morioris and they said, "Oh, these people won't fight. We have the warriors." Well, we won the battle. We make the rules, and that was the
Yep.
case until Tapalangi came and said, "We have won the battle. We're gonna make the rules." Right? And I'm
Correct.
not trying to justify any treatments that were wrong or immoral. This is just a statement of reality and fact.
Reality. Yeah.
All right.
From this country. And out there, Maori, who got 2 and 3 jobs, have had a guts full of them. You watch. You watch the polls as they go forward. Look, there are some Conservative Labor MPs. Some Conservative Labor MPs must be having cold sweats every night. Because where do you go now? You can't go there. And you can't go there. Because you go there and there, you won't be over here. Get that part right. You can't go there.
Yeah.
And I hope that some sober, conservative, right-thinking Maori people in the Labour Party wake up before it's too late. These people are a nightmare. They have no idea that politics is about, in the end, compromise to get as much as you possibly can, and far more than you can get collectively than you would have got individually. They don't understand the most rudimentary things. Their party has left Middle New Zealand a long time ago, and the Labour Party is going to leave them hanging in the wind too. Today I want to hear from the Maori Party, from the Labour Party, what do they intend to do on this matter? Because the excuse made by the member of the Select Committee panel was the most lame excuse I ever heard. These people wouldn't even turn up the Select Committee.
I love how the Te Māori whatever party is like, yeah, Winston Peters is just like, no, we are
Keep
going
forward,
to
forward
go
marching.
forward,
Yeah.
forward party. Yeah, that's what you call it.
Mm.
You have the will to move forward, and you need that. You need that when you're dealing with unreasonable people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Demand that they control the whole process of the Privileges Committee. They even demanded that they have their own process. They're going to have their own hearing. It was all bull dust, of course. It was all bull dust. When was their hearing? They never had it. And then they go on TV, and for a long interview, they're almost crying into each other's faces. Can you remember that? Look in the mirror, Narawa. What is your DNA? Look, what is your DNA? Mr. Ferris, what is your DNA? Because it ain't by majority Maori, and stop bull dusting your feet.
Order. Members, it's getting a little bit too noisy for my liking. So if we could just keep the dulcet tones down a bit.
Since
please.
1867, Maori have been elected to Parliament with just 4 winning a general seat until the introduction of MMP, when we saw the exponential growth of the number of Maori MPs. Right now, we have a record number of Maori in cabinet of any government, and far more than the Maori Party's got over there, all in our cabinet at this point in time. And right now we have, as I say, a party of extremists who act with utter contempt and ignorance of the process that has been accomplished. A lot of us have striven a long time to see a far greater and balanced representation in this Parliament, but we never thought we'd see, as a consequence of all that hard work, of all those Maori members going back over a century,
pisses him off right
that these
there.
people would turn up and, unlike the origins and the birth of their own party, have contempt for their own party leadership. This new bunch that just turned up here now, where did they get their license from? They're stumbling through it. They have no license, and they'll find very shortly they're going to be out of this place. They are trying to tear all that down for their own ignorant, misguided political gain.
Yeah.
Can I just say this, that we had, in the last few years, a very extensive international travel itinerary.
This is
Traveled
hilarious.
extensively more than any other foreign minister, but let me say, I still spent more time in Parliament than all those Maori MPs all together. And I want to tell their voters that their MPs are bludging off them. They're not turning up in Parliament. They're not being responsible. And the sooner you know, the sooner you'll be able to hold them to account.
Yeah, took a bunch of sickies.
I can see what the end is. I can see what the end is for that party, and it's not long.
Very interesting. I thought that was pretty interesting. And tells a lot about the politics and what's going on in the battle of ideas, Masi. But any closing thoughts on that?
No, I think it's only going to get ramped up now that it's campaign and the date is set. So, New Zealand will definitely, and he brought up a good point. A lot of people think that the coalition government has the most Maoris in cabinet, right? They're just not, they think differently than these Maori party parliamentarians that are representing this Maori party, which is it's just a Marxist ideology and political uh, tactic of identity politics that's going on. And I'm glad Winston Peters brought that up, that they have a large Maori in cabinet than any other cabinet before. So, people, and I don't know if many people are aware of that, but New Zealand will definitely have a choice if they're gonna keep keep this coalition or keep New Zealand first in, or they can go the other direction. That's why it's so important to vote.
Not 100%. And we invite all of the listeners, all those who are watching, what we always do, what the invitation always is. Be bold, right? Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions.
Stay
And
curious.
then always stay curious, be open to new ideas and explore it. Don't just because everyone's going left, just ask yourself, should I be going left? Does that make sense? Are the ideas coming there? Am I just going because everyone that's going left looks brown, thinks brown? That's where I should just go? Or should you say no? What should we be thinking and doing?
Yeah.
So with that being said, that's kind of like that portion of the show. And thought it was kind of interesting just to take that into account.
Yeah.
Auckland is our number one city in the world. We're listeners and viewers. And so that means New Zealand is an important part of our viewers and our listeners. So we thought we'd have that segment in there just to kind of talk through that.
And Auckland is the biggest city here in Aotearoa. So it's, very important.
It's important.
Yeah.
All right. The next portion of the show, we've had a handful of comments and messages from viewers and listeners to say, hey, can you walk through what your guys's kind of like idea or perception of how we got to Polynesia, how the Polynesian Empire was kind of settled and grown from, and have a conversation on that. So the next portion we're going to talk through is going from Waihi to Tongatapu and what that looks like. What are our concepts? What are our thoughts on the travel path and the logic or the belief system that we have for that? And so that's what we're going to spend the next portion of the live on moving forward. And as people know, we believe the oral history that is very strong among the families in Mu'a and from the specific families who were heavily involved as leaders and families that managed and guided the Polynesian Empire, that we originate from Vaihi, and that Vaihi is the motherland, and that Vaihi is the far, far away land that we originate from, and that that is a big portion of what we believe and what we refer to as our origin. With that being said, we do take the position that Vaihi is the Americas,
Yep.
and there are many examples that we point to for that. But anything you want to add on, Masi? What is your position on Vaihi, and why you kind of take the position of the Americas being Vaihi and being the origin of the Polynesian civilization? And specifically, we're talking about Maui, Tangaloa, and Loau, or the Taula. But go ahead, Mr. Atero.
To me, my conversion into the Vaihi ideology and where I think it is definitely our origin, to me, it's simple. The Ha'amonga in Tonga, Tapu, and the Sun Gate, it is built the same way up in the Americas. I think it's in
Hmm.
Bolivia. To me, that's the biggest indicator for me where the knowledge and especially with how how old people, they put some data on understanding of how old the Ha'amonga is, but then now that you know since doing this podcast and having some other opinions on how they date ruins, was that weathering, the weathering of the
Yeah, the
limestone, an
stone.
expert,
Yeah.
and from what he understood that this is so much older. To me that's the founder of Polynesia. So that came from the Americas. And with the whole what comes after, I'm open to that, but the founding fathers or the founding people of Polynesia is from the Americas, because to me that's the Sun Gate in the Americas and the Ha'amonga. That's where we came from, and they were built for the same purpose. And who knows, what was it, the same? It had to be the same group of people, or maybe some shared relatives that lived around the area that sailed all the way to Polynesia and became the founding people of the civilization of Polynesia, the Polynesian. So to me, that's my personal testimony or my thoughts of why I'm a believer of our people coming from the Americas.
Yes,
It's the Ha'amonga.
and just kind of to go along with what you're saying, this is the gateway of the sun that
Hmm.
you mentioned, Masi, and I'll just read here. It says the Tiwanaku civilization, right? That was 2000 or 11 to 200 to 1100 AD, was centered in the Lake Titicaca region of present day southern Peru
Oh,
and
Peru.
western Bolivia. Although
Mm.
its culture influence spread into Bolivia and parts of Chile and Argentina, Tiwanaku's main city center boasted a population of 25 to 40,000 at its peak, consisting of elites, farmers, llama herders, fishermen, and artisans. Its ceremonial center featured a tiered pyramid, right?
Mm.
Just like the Langis. So,
Hmm.
tiered pyramid called the Akapana, and the temple complex, the Kalasa. Yeah. So, this is the Sun Gate that we talked about. And
Correct.
just for reference, so you have the Sun Gate. Let me pull out the Ha'amonga.
Yeah. No, and I'll just add on while you're pulling that up to dude, that's what Polynesians were. When you state what those people were elite for, first they had people of high rank. That's the Tangaloa. Those were the high rank folks. Then you get the experts of fishermen. That's fishermen can be interpreted as masters of fishing or navigating the ocean. That's the Maui clan. And you're talking about also the tufungas, in especially with Ngowe, the farmers. because I think even David Burley, he touched on the the creation of of farmland in near Nukureka to cultivate different crops, and
Yeah.
then when you add that, then you add the 100 acres of reclaimed land. Like only farmers can do those things, man. You've got to have what kind of soil or something to withstand Mother Nature and to have that 100 acres reclaimed land still there today. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out
Yeah.
there. That's the same kind of skills our people have today.
So one thing, why is the Ha'amonga and this sun gate here in Peru? Why is that important for fishing, navigation, farming? Because it is by understanding the seasons. That's what the
Mm,
sun gate does, right? The sun gate allows you to track the seasons. So you have the sun gate to say when's the best time to plant your crops, when's the best time to harvest your crops. The knowing the seasons tells you what's the migration of the fishes, right?
mm.
Because just like fishes migrate, they come at certain seasons. You understand that by understanding the seasons, and that's what the sun gate provided. Also, the sun gate helped you on tracking the season and when's the best time to do your navigations. If you're traveling in the southern hemisphere, when's the best time to travel in the southern hemisphere where there aren't hurricanes in the southern hemisphere, right? If you're going to go into the northern hemisphere, when's the hurricane season or bad seas in the northern hemisphere? And you only know those things if you can track the seasons and the movement of the sun. So that's something that is extremely, extremely important. And so that is something like you were mentioning, that's something that's shared with Vaihi from the Americas that we don't find in
Anywhere else
Melanesia,
in
right?
Asia, in Taiwan, yeah.
So yeah, so that's something that's really important, and that's something that needs to take into consideration. Then, just like it mentioned earlier in this article here, that let me see, main city boasts the population. It was talking about the multi-leveled pyramids. Same thing in Tonga. You have the
Mm,
langis, multi-leveled pyramids, different scale. And so those are to us very convincing reasons that let me share this instead. All of this originates from the Americas, right?
correct.
Then you also have um, certain words, certain
Mm,
culture practices, like red, right? Red was a very powerful color
yep.
representative in the Americas. Priestly kings, kingship and priest kings, that's something that comes from the Americas as well. And for us, we recognize that there's genetic material from Southeast Asia and Melanesia mixed into our genetic makeup. But the genetic makeup, the DNA tests tell you where genetic material comes from, but it doesn't tell you where the ideas of a civilization come from. Why is that important? Let's use America as an example. If you go and do genetic studies in America, you'll find, obviously a lot of people from Eastern Europe, from Europe. You also find a lot of Asians from around the world, and you have all that genetic material, and you can say, oh, yeah, a lot of America came from China or from
Mm,
India. A lot of the Indians, depending on where you do your excavation. Also, we found a lot of products made in China, right? There's a lot of product, and that's for the America comes from China, kind of like the Lapita pottery. You find a lot of Lapita pottery, and you say, oh, they come from the Lapita people. Same thing with the United States. You'll find a lot of things made in China, and say America comes from China. But what really makes America special is not necessarily the genetic material, it's the idea and the foundation of the civilization. What is the unique idea and foundation of America that makes it special? It's the Constitution, right? It's leveraging the Bill of Rights. It's the the
Bear arms.
three, yeah, the right to bear arms. It's that
Yeah.
the governance of the people, by the people, for the people. It's the checks and balances in the system where you have the judiciary, the executive, and then you have the Senate and the House, right? And you have those different three bodies that are checks and balances. That's what makes America America. That's what we're also saying about the Polynesian civilization. What made us special and unique is not just our genetic material, it's the ideas and the fundamentals of the civilization. And we see a lot of those fundamental and technology and knowledge and cultural practices, a lot of them come from the Americas combined with the oral history of Vaihi. Anything else you want to kind of touch on, Mr. Aotearoa?
No, no, with the genetic makeup too, like any, America is the most powerful nation and people migrate there and people have mixed genetic makeup from different areas. It's just like other great past civilization. Like I think of the Roman Empire, like even Italy now. If you do like DNA testing, I'm sure you're gonna grab a mix from all
All
over
over.
Europe. I'm thinking of other great civilizations like in the past, like Persia. You know, you're gonna get a mix of all over the Middle East up to Asia, even Mongolia. So to me, that's why with the whole, if because I think it's not debatable with the Tuitonga. You can call it empire, or you can call it the Pacific Polynesian nation, wherever. It was the most powerful civilization of that time. And when you're the most powerful civilization, you're gonna attract various groups of people all over within the Pacific to migrate and inhabit, and you're gonna bring new people to support a big following of, because you're talking about a dynasty that is lasted for thousands of years. So you're going to need new resources from wherever you can get them. So that's why it can be a little misleading when you go by DNA, especially when you talk about great vast civilization. You do the DNA of the Egyptians now, right? They're going to be mixed and have remnants of what the Egypt, great Egypt civilization empire, what it once was. And Tonga is so unique because we still have a monarchy that we still survive through colonization, but our people has been mixed because of various groups that have come to live within the Tuitonga civilization, or the Polynesian nation. That's just kind of my thing there. When you have a certain group, like maybe in the Amazon, that hasn't had any a tribe that
Contact.
hasn't had contact with the outside world, that DNA can be important in that sense. But when you talk about a civilization of a great empire or a great powerful nation of that time in the Pacific, like the Tuitonga dynasty, the the DNA can be a little misleading in my understanding.
No, 100%. And, I remember one of our viewers from the last live we did, Masi, he had mentioned that they found a skull in Kennewick, Washington. So in Washington State, in kind of central slash eastern Washington, they found a skull that was 9,000 years old that looks to be a Polynesian skull.
Interesting.
Yes. And so I had written to, or this viewer had commented on it,
Mm.
and I was like, "Oh, I've never heard of it, but we'll keep an eye out for." And it popped up on my feed, and I watched the video, and it's quite interesting. It started because they found a large spear stone made of obsidian, which is like that glass,
Mm-hmm.
volcanic glass that they found it in Maui, but they're pretty sure it's not from Hawaii and that it's from the Americas, and they found it
Interesting.
in Hawaii. And so that's what started this guy on this journey. But anyways, so that's kind of our position on Vaihi and some of the things on why we believe the civilization and the culture has a lot of things that point towards Maui. So, I mean, to Vaihi. So, what is Vaihi and who came from Vaihi? We take
Hmm.
the position that Tangaloa, who was kind of like the kingly leader, Maui, who was the navigator slash science guy, right? He had all the navigational and astronomical knowledge. And then there was also Loau and Taula, and that was basically the priestly
Priest.
slash civilization builder or person. Those were the three clans, and they're not. We say three people, and yes, there were people who were leaders of each clan, but we're talking about a group of people or small group that left Vaihi in the Americas and worked their way to Tonga. And we got to see, look at how I mean it's the opposite, literally opposite side of the world,
Mm,
right? And so when we zoom in, one of the critiques that we usually get from people are, hey, how come they left Vaihi and they didn't stop or not see all the other islands
mm.
that are scattered throughout the Pacific Ocean? Any thoughts on answering that critique, Mr. Aotearoa?
Well, one. Well, first, too, I was thinking before we go there,
Okay.
I want your thoughts. Where do you think was the departing area? Where do you think the departing what region in the Vaihi map did our ancestors depart from? Um, in your thoughts, do you have any
Yes.
ideas? Because I know I have my idea.
Yes. I
Interested in yours.
That's a good one. It This is a brand new idea or concept. I'm open anywhere in the US, but I've been playing with this idea and I don't know how accurate it is or not, Masi.
Yeah.
But I'm open to this thought. I'm open to Tangaloa, Maui, and Loau potentially coming from Central and Southern America
Okay.
and going to Tonga. And I don't know, and that's because we don't really know how long or how early Tangaloa, Maui, and the Taula went to Tonga, right? Like you said, there's ideas out there that are reasonable ideas to look at the weathering of the Ha'amonga and say this thing could be anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 years old when you measure the weathering patterns on
Yeah.
that. So I'm open to that idea that there could have been an initial group coming in, Tangaloa, Maui, and Loau. They come in, they could have been there for a couple thousand years. And then traditionally, I used to think that, oh, Aho Etu was, just another descendant of Tangaloa. But I'm open to potentially maybe someone from Northern America, another
Mm-hmm.
migration coming through,
Mm-hmm.
making contact in Tongatapu, and that's where the Tuitonga comes in. Like, let me explain why I'm thinking that
Okay.
way, right?
Okay.
Like when we look at the trend, and I'm a big believer is like if you the best way to look at the future or to understand events that happened anciently is to look to events later on that seem similar. And I look at the Tuitonga and Tonga dealing with colonization and why was there a change in the structure and an overall setup of the civilization is because something changed dramatically, right? And when I look at that story of Ahoetu, obviously it's symbolic of something. Something changed, something happened, and there was a need to change. And I'm open to this idea. I'm open to it was just another descendant of Tangaloa,
Hmm.
and either new ideas came in or there was a emergency threat to the civilization that Tangaloa said, hey, we need a new system, an adopted system, and that's where the Tuitonga comes into place. Oh, and I'm also open to the very old civilization was Tangaloa, Maui, and Loau, or which is Taula, and then there was another migration that came in, and there was a need to adopt that new migration and generate a new, maybe they restored some written language or some knowledge, and then Ahoetu was a representation of this new adaptation to changes in the civilization. It's an idea I've been developing probably since just the last month.
Mm.
So that's, if I were to go off the ancient, I would probably go with South America, meaning thousands BC. But if I were to go, it's more like right around 200 BC to 300 AD. Then I would lean towards North America. Is kind of where I'm at, if
Okay.
that makes sense. How about
Okay.
you?
I think this is my idea here, and also other ideas just with people that I've spoken with, and I feel like maybe this was the launching point of where the migration of our people came from. I wonder if you can put the Tapachula Tua. I think it's in somewhere. If you can put in your search Google's, it's somewhere I think in current Mexico. Tapachula, right there. I think right there.
Chiapas,
Where
Mexico.
does that take us to? So if you can zoom out a little bit, Tua. So Tapachula is right close. It's kind of like that kind of big city of the edge right there in at
So
the very
southern
end,
Mexico.
very
Southern
southern, right?
Mexico.
It's very close to the central
Yeah, Guatemala
um,
and Mexico, right
Yeah,
close to the
of
border.
Americas. I feel like that was the launching point because Tapa, what does Tapa mean? Kind of like in Tongan, edge, right? Chula, apparently from what I've heard is people in that area don't really know what Tapa Chula is, but that kind of sounds like Tapakula, why red is so important in, especially in monarchies in Polynesia and in religion. A lot of the current people don't know what that name means. It's such an old name, and I feel
Mm,
like that is the area. I feel like that first migration of our ancestors from Polynesia came to find the unpopulated lands of Polynesia. When I say that, Tonga, Haamoa, Tahiti, all of these lands, and in Polynesia, Hawaii, all of them. And I feel like this is the launching pad area, I feel like, from our
mm,
ancestors, just because of the name Edge. That town is close to the edge. Gula is
red.
red because it's an important thing that our ancestors came with from the Americas, and that's what they named that place, and they sailed off. So that's kind of my launching point, Tua, of kind of where our ancestors came from
Okay.
my idea of just, I think I've talked with this with Maui Tekelangi. He also believes that, and to me, that's probably the first migration. There could be other migration, but I feel like that was an important area of launching pad to the Polynesian civilization, seeking new land.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and they do say in a lot of these areas that the ruins and stuff were colored red. They had a red coloring on a lot of these things. So
Mm,
I can see some of that as well. So So there we go.
So
So
now
let's
we
say
can,
they
yes,
come out of
yes,
Tapachula.
yeah.
Why is it that, like the critique is like, oh, you have all these French Polynesia, you have, even Hawaii up here, right? All right, there. Why is it they didn't stop and see all these islands or stay at those islands? Why did they go from right there, Tapakula,
Hmm.
to Tonga, Tonga Tapu specifically?
Well, goes to the story of, everyone knows the story of when the Israelites was released from Egypt. They wandered the desert for 40 years before they found the new promised land. Wandering 40 years and just to settle that land up there, it doesn't take you 40 years to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's the same thing with the Hikureo, which is God, right? God had to move his people around for whatever reason, for however long before they settled that area. Because 40 years, you can go, man, 40 years of traveling, man, you can get all the way up to Europe and back, with the Israelites. But it was just settled in the Canaanite land up north, not too far from Egypt. But it's the same thing with the Polynesian people, the first Polynesian people. Hikureo either told them to keep going until they made their first stop to Ata in Tonga, and then before they went to Tonga Tapu, or they probably did go look at some other lands, but Hikureo said, "This is not the place. This is not the place. Keep sailing, find
Mm.
Tonga Tapu until what Hikureo says." Hikureo goes, "This is the place." They settled here, built the ruins, the first ruins, which is uh, where they lived, where the Langi was at, the Ha'amonga Amaui, the Sun Gate, to tell where the sun rises and the sun rests, and also the astronomical knowledge. And then you develop a religion to keep in communication with Hikureo. So to me, it's either they came and just found Ata and then go to Tonga Tapu, like the oral tradition of Tonga from Mua says, or they could have wandered around like the Israelites for how many years in the other, maybe found other islands, and they said, "This is not the place. This is not the place." And then they found Ata and Tonga Tapu and then Hikureo says, "This is the place." And then they keep building their civilization. That's just me and my thoughts, Tua, on that. I don't know if you had any additions or maybe a different perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it was in one of our conversations. I lean towards that as well, where I can't remember who we were having the conversation with, Mussy, but you were definitely in it, and we were talking about you know the Europeans and their discovering of the islands. I didn't realize that they were zigzagging all over the place in the Pacific, and that
Mm-hmm.
many times they would sail past islands and not even know that there were islands nearby. And that's why they were
Right.
zigzagging. That's why they brought on that Tahitian navigator guy. What's his name?
Ooh, yes, by Cook, right?
Yes,
Um,
who drew
I
the
forgot
map?
his
Tupaya is his name.
Tupaya, correct? Yeah,
Yeah. So that's why it was a big deal to bring him, because he would tell them, instead of just zigzagging and kind of tracking, where you've been, to say, oh yeah, we didn't see any islands here, but this is where we found an island.
yeah.
It is actually because of the size of the Pacific Ocean. It's the odds are against you that if you were just to let's just do this example, right? If you just left Tapachula and just sailed out on the ocean like this, heading towards Tonga, the odds are against you of finding islands along the way,
Yeah.
right? This is why what our ancestors did in the Pacific Ocean is mind blowing, because when you go out into the Pacific Ocean, and this is what Burley talked about, right? Like,
Mm,
he talked about when you come from here, he says you can almost see the islands next to each
yeah.
other. So He says, but once you kind of get to this area, you have to know where you're going, or you're just going to go out there and die,
Yeah.
right? Like you,
Mm.
and the odds are against you of finding land. So really, there's two things. Number one, the odds are that if you left here and you sailed to Tonga Tapu, the odds are you wouldn't run into any of these little specks of land,
Yep.
right? You have to know where you're going, or you have to be guided to a place by someone or something. So that's the first one, and then the second one is I'm in alignment. You know, Hikuleo first off is not a female. That's something that we dug into this, right? It's like, where did this
Mm.
idea of Hikuleo being a female? Then we find
Looks like
out
it was
they
made. It looks like it was made up like the Puremede thing.
yes, the Pulemele, right?
Yeah.
Everybody called it Pa Tonga, and it was the residents
Eh,
of the Tuitonga. And then the academic comes and goes, no, we're gonna call it Pulemele because it's not sexy to just say it was part of the Tongan, the Tuitonga Empire. We're just gonna say it's something new, right? And the locals are like, Pulemele. We've never heard that word our entire lives. We have no idea what that is. Anyways, but that's probably what happened. That happened with that little idol that they found that was female, right? They're like, we have no idea what this is, but Hikuleo is recognized by everyone, so we're gonna say this is Hikuleo, and Hikuleo's a female, probably because it's woke and the feminism deal was going on at the time,
it's
so
inclusive. Ew.
inclusive, yes. So yeah. So number one, we believe that Hikuleo is a male, and that's what the oral tradition says. Who led Maui, Tangaloa, and Taula slash Loau to Tongatapu. They first landed at Ata, and then moved to Tongatapu. And did you notice what was interesting, Masi, when we spoke with David Burley about the sea levels? What I
Did he say
thought
it
was
was?
interesting.
Was it the
Go ahead.
same? It still stayed the same. What did he say?
No, what he said was, and I can't see Ata. Ata is to the south of Tongatapu, but I can't. Let me see if I can find it. But um, what he said was the sea levels were actually higher, right?
Oh wow.
The sea
Mm.
levels were actually higher. So there's Ata. So the oral history says they actually landed Ata, but they knew that's not where we're supposed to be. So they explored the area. They find Tongatapu. This is Maui, Tangaloa. And then they're told this is the place to be, right?
Mm.
And then if we go to Haveluliku area, not too far from the Ohole beach, and this is Hamula. That's an old name that comes
For
from the Americas.
Hokula, is it also
Yes.
Is it
So this
Hokula?
is
Yeah.
where Hokula is in this area. This area is where Tangaloa and them first landed and settled. But
Mm.
what I found interesting is when we were looking at the old shorelines, you see like all this area right here, Masi,
Mm.
everything to the right was underwater.
Interesting.
So Tatagamotonga, Makaunga, all this area, a lot of Nuku'alofa, and even kind of going like this, Nuku Nuku, all of that was underwater. You know what wasn't underwater thousands and thousands of years ago?
Hokula, the
Haveluliku side
Haveluliku.
of the island, which is quite
Mm.
interesting because that's where it said thousands and thousands of years ago that
That's where
when
they landed.
Angaloa,
Mm.
they landed there,
Interesting. Okay, I
you
didn't
know?
catch that nugget from David
Yeah.
Burley. Mm.
So I found that very, very interesting. But that's the storyline, right? So the storyline is they come from Vaihi, and you have to remember, Vaihi is the far, far away land,
Correct.
right? And I know a lot of people say, "Oh no, Vaihi is talking about Savai'i." right?
Those days, that's just down the road, man.
Yes, that's not a far, far away land, right? That's like you said, that's down the road. So they go from Ata to Tongatapu, and and that's where they start expanding. And
Mm,
according to David Burley, the oldest genetic samples that they found had no Melanesian blood,
yes, yes, I
right?
did catch that.
It was all Southeast Asian, no Melanesian genetic material in there.
The pure of purest Polynesian. Eh?
Yes,
It's what?
yes. And then they say as you move north up into Samoa and those other areas,
Uh,
then the DNA mixes into other types of DNA and you get Melanesian and other genetic. But when you start from Nukuleka, it's 100% Southeast Asian.
mm,
So, anyway, so that's kind of the nuggets. That's how our position, how we get from Vaihi to Tongatap, right?
okay.
And
So David Burley was saying that from that settlement in Nukureka, 100% from what he sees was from Southeast Asia, which is his own
yeah, pure. Like that's why he says
pure
this is where Polynesian
starts,
civilization
the
starts.
birthplace. Okay.
Yes. Um, and he's compared it with other genetic material they found from old settlements in other areas.
Okay.
Okay. So the question now becomes, Masi, they land here. How does or what's kind of the discussion on how does it expand? What are your thoughts of Tangaloa, Maui? They land here. Oh, before we go there,
Mm,
so they first there's Hokula,
yep.
right? Right here, that's where they first land, right? And then as they expand out later, Tangaloa goes to Lotolangi. This is in the Folaha area. This is Tapuhia, where Tangaloa resided.
And I'm assuming this is when over time the water is receding,
Recede.
and then this is like
Correct.
brand new land, as almost like a pure land and fitting for uh, a king to reside, because this is like fresh off the land where the Tangaloa,
Yes.
right? That clan.
Correct. And then Lolo or Lalo Fonua, that's where Maui goes to the
Mm,
east, right? Tangaloa goes into the center, and then to the west, Pulotu, that's where the Taula or Loau goes, and they kind of build their residences in those main areas. So we go from Vaihi, Ata, Hokula, then they split Lotolangi, Pulotu, and Lolofonua. So just wanted to give that context for everyone kind of
for the
listening in.
viewers.
What are your thoughts? And then the idea is, according to Burley and in oral history, then we start expanding out from Tongatapu to the rest of Polynesia,
Mm,
right? And start
um,
developing there. What are your
yeah.
thoughts from there? Anything to add?
Well, yeah. I was just gonna say with the whole expansion, then from Tongatapu, then it goes. I feel like. What are your thoughts? It could have been at the same time when it's going to Ewa and to Ha'apai,
Mm-hmm.
and then going to Vava'u, and then I think that's where it goes. Then to Niwa, and then it could have been from Niwa to Ha'amoa and Niue and the rest of Polynesia, like going eastward after
Yeah,
Samoa, Niue, going eastward, hitting Tahiti, hitting Marquesas, Rapa Nui, Hawaii, Aotearoa, and
correct.
then Fiji. Fiji's always interesting because I find Fiji as a there were people on it, and I feel like that's where the Melanesians were kind of stopped there, kind
Entrenched.
of
Yeah,
yes, kind of stopped there, kind of migrating. Um, let's just say exploration, and the only reason why Fiji is considered Polynesian is because of Tonga with their interactions with them. That's the only reason why they're Polynesians. If we didn't because it seems like you know, it seems like Fiji, maybe that's why some of our vocabularies are not very nice to Fiji, because it seems like that's where we send our bad folks, or when you want to do mischievous stuff with warriors, you're tired of being bored or whatever, you go to Fiji, you do something bad, you go to Fiji. That's what it seems like. I don't know, in some of the oral histories, and they, and when I say that, I'm not just meaning the Lao group. I'm talking about all the way to main island, Viti Levu, the biggest
Yes.
islands in Fiji. Tongans are there's oral histories of, and there's even settlements and ruins in these places up the river of Tongan high class Tongans that maybe did some things they were not supposed to. This seems Fiji seems to a very common place for them to go and stay there and stay away. That's what it seems like to me. So that's kind of my whole. I don't know, and to me that happened in various times while the migration to East Polynesia, all the way up to Hawaii, down to Aotearoa, us going mingling with Fiji, whatever purpose or whatever instances happen, we just kind of had that interactions with Fiji, and that's how they really became Polynesians. And you can even say Polynesians culture really kind of overtake the Melanesian, because Fiji Fiji's a lot of Fiji's customs and cultural stuffs regarding the kava and their way of life has really kind of turned into a Polynesian way of life because of the
Yeah.
interactions.
Not 100%. 100% agreed. One thing I was gonna bring, because I mean, I kind of align with that it kind of is like a north push, right? Wallace Futuna. When I
Mm,
say north, it's
yeah, Wallace
Ha'apai,
Futuna.
Vava'u,
Yeah,
Samoa, Niue, kind of like
yeah,
this whole area right here. That that core Western Polynesia origin. And David Burley's finding is within 80 to 100 years, they're pushing and they're reaching Samoa, right? Within
yeah.
100 or so years of the expansion. The one thing I wanted to bring up, and this always stuck out with me, was, let me pull it up here. I'm gonna put up a list here of the Tuitongas. And the names of the Tuitonga are important because many times they reflect events,
Mm,
right? And let me see here. We're going to find the first Kaulufonua right here. So the 19th Tuitonga
mm,
is Kaulufonua the first.
mm,
And like cow is a numbering, like a head or a cow, like that's a numbering system.
correct.
And so cow is it's a unit of 20. If I remember correctly, it's the unit of 20. So what they're saying here, from what I understand, is from Tevitafale, is this is when the Tuitonga has 20 islands, right? Now, and
Under
so
its
that's not
authority,
that's
right?
under under its authority. Now,
Or the islands who are paying the Inasi and the Polo Polo, right?
correct.
To the
That are
Tuitonga.
part
Okay.
of this confederacy or this union,
Yes.
and it's not always military, right?
Yeah.
What we've learned from Donald Trump with Greenland, you don't have to use military force always to get what you want. You can use economic pressure, right? I'm going to
Mm,
sanction you. You want access to the greatest consuming market in the world? Well, you better play along, or if not, I'm going to tax you. And you can be pressured to do these things, not always with war, but with intermarriage, access, and influence, right?
yeah.
And then, so, anyways, the reason why I bring this up is I don't think this is talking about 20 little islands because there's 176 islands just within the kingdom of Tonga today. This almost feels like 20 regions or
Mm,
20 groupings of islands. Now,
mm,
what that looks like, I don't know. Is it Ha'apai group is one grouping of islands, Vava'u, one grouping of islands, Uvea, another grouping of islands, Samoa, a grouping. You know what I mean? It to me, it almost feels like these is 20 regions of islands and so forth. But that is some of the oral history that Kaulufonua was given that name because at that time the Tu'itonga is established. Kau. It's a Kau Ulufonua. So he's the head of 20 island groups.
mm.
Any thoughts or anything to kind of bring up on that?
Ooh, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I'm kind of leading towards grouping of islands because in those grouping of islands, you're gonna have from the Tokatufa a head, a kind
Hmm.
of the main person within the you know proximity of other islands. So I'm kind of leaning towards that. And then with that list, I was just kind of looking when you were speaking. I was like, because a lot of those names have meanings of certain events. And then I saw another Ha'a Vakafuhu, the first.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's and I'm thinking, during the whole Togatufa, did somebody it looks like somebody didn't listen to their Aiki and needed a different way of building a confederacy or an empire. But because I remember seeing the Ha'a Vakafuhu in the second, that's kind of after the assassination of
That's what I was gonna bring up,
um
Masi.
yes,
Takalaua. So
Tagwalawa, and then like
that's shortly after
Kaulufo,
Kaulufonua Pekai's time.
correct, and then his offsprings, he kind of has one of the Tuitongas becomes the Vagafuhu name of the Tuitonga, the second. But I saw the first one and it was a little bit more up before it became like Kalufonua with the whole kind of at its peak. But it seems like while working toward its peak before of having the 20 island nations under the Tuitonga, that Ha'avakafuhu seems to be a lot of military intervention that happened. But that's what I was just thinking. That's what I was just thinking.
Absolutely. Not 100%. So let's bring this back up. Trying to bring up the where Google Maps. There we go. So there's that expansion into those. You know what? Something. Look at that, Mussy. I never seen that
Mm,
before.
mm,
There's a Tonga in Tuvalu area.
yeah,
I never knew
interesting. Yeah.
that. Interesting. Anyways, so you develop the Polynesian Empire. It's growing and it's expanding. Then once Western Polynesia is kind of established, then they go east,
Yeah.
right? Into these other parts of Polynesia, eventually to Hawaii, which is right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we say is the Polynesian Empire, how it starts, how they get there, how they get
Correct.
established, and building the foundation of a civilization that, from what we can see from archaeological evidence, has been around for 3,000 years and is still active to this day. Trying to think anything else that we wanted to kind of cover on that.
No, I think I think it's good that we share our idea of where it kind of all started and what became of the Polynesian nation from kind of walking it through, unless maybe in the future episodes, if people when once our viewers watch this and they throw some ideas here and there, and then we'll respond. But I mean, other than that, I think that's pretty much my
Pretty much it.
understanding
Yeah.
until
And
proven. I mean,
yeah,
like I always had this idea until proven. I mean, we've kind of shared our ideas with some of the other ideas of the flaws of Taiwan being the origin of our people, and that doesn't fit uh, as comparable, because to me there's really no ruins to match with our astronomical ruins like the Ha'amonga Maui, which I kind of shared my own personal research and study of why I believe it's the Americas because of the Sun Gate there, and that knowledge had to come from there to here. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there. And we touch on the flaws of DNA, especially when you talk about a vast empire like the Tuitonga dynasty that had so many dynasties that you're gonna attract various people around the Pacific, and you'll be mingling. And then when you do that, when you're an empire and you're a master navigator, you're bringing all kinds of people mixing with you.
No, 100%. And a couple interesting stories that we've kind of heard as the expansion of this. Now, look, this is Tonga, right? Western Polynesia. Look at what it takes to get to Eastern Polynesia, Rapa Nui, and to South America, right?
Hmm.
Look at how easy it would be to go here,
Yeah, and take not only
right?
that, no, you probably can take a much bigger boat and carry a lot more people. Because I'm thinking, man, when you're going to the Americas, Vaihi, you're talking about maybe it's a lot more riskier. You might probably want to take a lot more, not take a lot more people who can probably help manage the boat. But when you talk like what you said to him, when you talk about like close, that's like Mickey Mouse kind of sailing right there for our people back in those
Yeah.
days.
And you got to remember, once you get to here, you can see all the big islands. You're not
Mm,
going to get lost. You're always going to find land. Maybe the risk is just human being attacked by humans, but getting lost and not finding land in this area is less of a risk than going
yeah,
east. Then here's another interesting story is there's Tonga, right? Look at where Japan is, right? So getting to Taiwan, once you get to Papua New Guinea, I can see all these islands and I can get to Taiwan. So I know a lot of people say, oh, you have a lot of words and stuff that are similar in Taiwan. Well, there's a lot of possibility that Polynesians went to Taiwan and
yeah.
some stayed there, right? And then also, there's an interesting story that Maui Tekelangi shares that Maui Kisi Kisi.
Yes,
So
yes,
Kisi
yes.
Kisi in Tongan is dragonfly.
Yeah.
And he says that some of what he has kind of researched and come across is the reason why he was given that is because when Maui visited Japan, he was given the hat that has kind of like the big bow things that go over, and that he wore a headpiece that had that shape and it looks like dragonflies. And that's why that one Maui gets that name of Maui Kisi Kisi. That's one interesting, kind of an interesting story there,
Hmm.
that I think is kind of funny to hear. But if you really believe that our ancestors were traveling and navigating throughout the world, then it would make sense why you would find lapita pots in Tonga and genetic material from this area. Because look at how much easier it is to go trade and to travel here and there rather than trying to go all the way over here to the Americas to trade.
Mm,
So
yeah. I think that the other idea with the academics saying that we came from Taiwan and then came to Tonga, and then they say we went to South America. I have it reversed. We're coming from the Americas, coming to Tonga, settle Polynesia, and then they went and explore to Southeast Asia. That's kind of, I have it opposite from the common belief from academia, because that's what they're saying, that then they went travel to the Americas, as they said, with
yes,
their migration.
yes, not 100%. So the next part, anything else to add to that, Masi, before
No,
I
I'm
get
good.
into
I'm
some
good.
other things here?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Like I'm still trying to that tapachula, the tapakula stuff. That's to me, it's very interesting. Where I think where's the launching pad, and I'm interested if viewers have come across that idea or not. The ones who believe that we came from Vaihi too. So I'm just interested in some of the feedback there over time.
Yes. So what I did, because the other question that we do get online, and these are fair questions, believe it or not, when people ask us questions or throw stuff here on the live digital kava session, you have to have an open mind and you have to consider other people's questions, critiques, and bring them as fair, right? And you have to
Mm,
answer them. So the question then arises, if these things are true and Tangaloa and the Tuitonga has this massive empire, right? That goes from New
yes.
Zealand
To
all the
Hawaii,
way
to
to
yeah,
Rapa Nui, which is somewhere over
Rapa
here,
Nui.
right? Somewhere. Oh, there it is. From
Yeah.
here to here to Hawaii, and then they call it the stingray. There's a tail that goes into Melanesia, into this area. That is the size of Russia, I think is what they say, which is the largest nation right now. So we
Yeah,
would have been
landmass. Yeah.
landmass. By square miles of surface area, this would have been the largest nation on Earth.
Mm,
The question now becomes, it's a fair question, if the Tuitonga was that influential and that large, why would they remain on Tongatapu? Why wouldn't they go to Fiji? Why wouldn't they go to Auckland, New Zealand? Right? Why wouldn't they go to Samoa? Why wouldn't they go to Hawaii that has more
mm.
land, or even to Fiji where there's more resources? Why would they remain on Tongatapu? And I think that's a fair question, right? And so what we did was we asked Grok, our digital assistant, and I always think it's hilarious that people are like, "You're just going to ask AI, you're just going to," and I
Oh,
want you
dang,
to,
they're lagging. They're getting
oh
left
yeah,
behind. The world is
yeah,
going AI.
well,
It's either
a
go
hundred
with it or
percent.
get left behind.
AI Grok is already measured to pass every major academic test. They are better than Grok is better than experts in their all the experts in their specific fields combined.
Mm,
And so, yeah, I feel very comfortable asking Grok. Right? Is Grok's a
yeah,
pretty smart guy. So,
because Grok brings it up, and then what we do, we just verify. We just
yeah,
verify if
we
what
bounce
Grok
off of
has
it and
is
say,
yeah.
hey, and what we do on the show, we bring people we don't always agree with. We want to hear what they say. And then we say, yeah, we kind of agree with this, we disagree with that. And we don't always have to confront them right there at the moment, because it's more important to have an individual share their thoughts and let them get that information out. You can always discuss and analyze later. But the important thing is, like Winston Peters said, on the marae, we hear them out,
Mm, mm-hmm.
right? So we had Grok do an analysis to say, why would the Tuitonga or Tangaloa remain or keep Tongatapu as the capital, as the center of the empire, despite despite
Bigger
all
land.
this bigger lands and all these discoveries, right? So we're gonna bring that up and kind of walk that through, if that works with you, Mr. Aotearoa.
Yes, sir.
So let's share that. All right. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Just a couple more. Wait, what's going on here? Nope. Then we'll just do this. View. Do one more. You want to read that first one here,
Yep.
Mas?
I'll read the first paragraph.
Go ahead.
Tongatapu, Empire's capital, geographic advantages. Tongatapu's location in the southern Tongan archipelago provided a strategic central hub for maritime activities, positioned approximately two-thirds of the way between Hawaii and New Zealand. This facilitated control over a dispersed island network and enabled long distance voyages to Samoa and Fiji, forming a scalene triangle that supported trade, invasions, and cultural exchanges. 26. Its its raised coral limestone structure with a flat terrain averaging 35 meters in elevation on the steep southern coast, reaching up to 70 meters, offered natural barriers across storms and potential invaders, while protective reefs created calm lagoons like Fanga'uta and Fangakakau, ideal for anchoring large double-hulled canoes essential to the empire's navy. These lagoons also served as breeding grounds for fish and birds, enhancing resource availability in an otherwise isolated setting. Unlike Samoa and Fiji, which have more rugged, diverse topography and larger land masses, but fewer natural harbors suited for massive voyaging fleets. Tongatapu's reefs and landlocked harbors provided superior protection and logistical efficiency for seafaring operations. Ooh, that's a lot there, Tua. That's a
Yeah,
lot there.
there's a
Right, right.
lot of interesting things to be discussed there. Now, remember, Masi, in the beginning of the empire, New Zealand and Hawaii were not there, right? That those are
Mm,
later parts of the empire or the civilization. Now you understand why Tonga, you remove that. Tonga is the most southern part of the empire, and that hence the name Tonga Tapu. It was the sacred south because that was the center. That was the most sacred, that was the most important. And that's why the traditional Polynesian perception of navigation, south was the cardinal direction. Just like all roads led to Rome, all directions pointed to
to
Tongatapu
Tonga.
because
Tongatapu.
that's where it was. I found it very interesting. And I actually thought this, Masi, when I was in Samoa
Mm,
and we drove around. And you have to cut through mountainous terrain to get to some of these villages in Samoa. They're actually quite isolated
mm,
from each other. Some of them are like you go through the mountains, you go up the mountain, you come down, and then it's like this little open area, right? Isolated area where the villages is kind of on the coast, the edge, but the mountains kind of blocks it from the rest of the island. And so it came into my mind, and it's deep sea, it just comes straight in. I'm like, if someone were to try and invade or just to harass a little village, you could do that in Haamoa because they were kind of landlocked by the mountains. The mountains became a barrier. So you
mm,
like it's mentioned here, because Tonga is flat and it's protected by reefs, it's actually quite difficult to try and quote unquote invade, right?
mm.
And then there's safe harbors with the lagoons. There's actually very strong strategic for defense and also for maintaining of a large fleet. Unique
Double hold.
advantages,
Yeah.
the double hulled canoe, because you need, they had the double hulled canoe, you need at least 5 to 6 feet of water. And when you go to Fangauta Lagoon, you get 5 to 6 feet of water in a lagoon that's harbor, that's protected. So when a storm comes, you can store
Yeah.
your ships in the water, don't get damaged, or you can get them off. So, but here, Grok is showing there are some very practical, defensive, and important features that Tongatapu provides for maintaining a large fleet, which it is universally accepted Tonga had a very strong naval fleet, as shown by Maafu's advantage in Fiji. It is documented that his biggest advantage in Fiji was his navy. His navy is what allowed him, what, within 20, 30 years
Yeah.
to leave Tongatapu, go to Fiji, and within 20, 30 years become one
Create
of
a,
the most powerful chiefs in
that's
Fiji.
amazing. He created a chief line out of thin air to be one of the elites in Fiji. That's crazy.
To this day. To
To
this
this day.
day. So yeah. Any thoughts on that, Masi, before we go to the next one?
No, I think controlling the ocean is a very critical. Like if I had to choose a military branch that I had to like probably invest the most money into, just like America, I think America invests the U.S. Navy because they know you control the seas and you're moving stuff between islands, resources everywhere. You're gonna win the battle. You're gonna
Yeah.
win the war. And that to me, that's what the Tuitonga did. They chose Tongatapu because Tongatapu was able, like what it says, it was better than Samoa and Fiji in harboring double hull canoes. Those are the largest takarias. Were known as the largest, and what the bigger ones were the lompeao, even the
Hmm.
bigger ones. But you know, the double hull canoes were known as the biggest kind of form of transport, moving people, moving warriors
Goods,
throughout it,
commerce,
goods,
right?
commerce, and that's the reason. I think that answers all the questions why people say can't. Why it could have been Samoa or Hawaii or New Zealand. Tongatapu had the best places to harbor the large fleets, and that's why it was chosen, just as a geographic advantage that the other islands did not provide. And to me, that's what the Tongatapu like. It's you can also say the last Polynesian nation within the Polynesian Empire, the last people to sail traditionally was
The
the
Tongans.
Tongans, the Mafu,
Yeah.
right?
Going to
Mafu.
Fiji,
So
going
going to feed
to Samoa regularly, going to Uvea, right?
and where who are the who are the people who are actually still making traditional canoes? I can think of the two people, right? What's that? Tuyone Pulotu.
Hmm.
He's to me, it doesn't surprise me that our people are the ones that can still make these traditional boats. He's gonna be missed once he's gone. I know that other guy in Tonga that just recently did a sailing in Tongatapu. I forgot
Yeah,
his
the
name, but he's from
Lemeki, the guy's a descendant of the
yes,
Lemeki clan,
he's based in Tonga. He's been making the traditional canoes for
and
a
just
while
did a
in
trip,
Tonga.
what,
Did a trip,
couple months
and I
ago?
know yes, and I know it was a big deal when Hawaii did that first trip from Hawaii to Tahiti. That was only big because we always talk about Hawaii getting access to the media. That's why it was all filmed and it was
That's
kind
one
of
of the
spread
beauties
as
of getting colonized. You
you're
have
getting
access to
colonized, so
those
you get
resources.
access. And I think that Nainoa Thompson, he was the seafaring. He went and sought knowledge from the Mark, I think it was the
Micronesians.
Micronesian. Because he didn't, and that's the thing, right? He didn't. If he understood some of the history with the last people to travel, I'm sure he would have gotten it from us talking. But
Yeah.
because, that's the other issue with colonization. You really don't know your Polynesian fellow neighbors. You go to somewhere else, and that's fine because at the end of the day, we did some interacting with the Micronesians, but they were different from us. But like I said, it's not a big deal with the whole navigating because Tonga did it. We were the last ones to do it traditionally, and then we still have very well known people that can still make our traditional canoes even now. I mean, I can't think of any any people that can still make it. Maybe they can make the ones now, but now that there's I'm talking about the early ones, and I'm thinking like Tuyone because I'm thinking the
Hmm.
early 2000s. This is before he was a fellow Tongan. He created the boat. He even the boat that in Hawaii they use for traditional sailing is made by Tuyone, um, Puloto. So that's my thoughts there, Tua.
No, 100%. And this is where, let me see here. I'm gonna share some. This is why it's important, Masi, because that was that was something that stuck out to me. And I appreciate that they went to the Micronesian guy to kind of get some of that knowledge.
Yeah.
But my only kind of thing to add to that is that was not the Polynesian way of
No.
navigating,
No.
right?
No.
And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so what that does is we miss out on how and why that's important. And I'm gonna try and let me see if I can zoom in
Yeah.
here. But you were
Well,
it sounds like you were gonna say something, Musty.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, right, when you're colonized and you're kind of lost, you kind of just reach out for anything, and you're trying to seek an answer so quickly, and you had no direction. If there was some kind of study or kind of understanding that they could have reached back to Tonga, we'd be happy to help our Hawaiian brothers and sisters like Nainoa Thompson to uncover that knowledge. But you know, some people, when you rush things, sometimes you just grab whatever is close. Micronesia was
Yeah.
close. Was calling, it's a part of they part of the U.S. kind of colony, as they get. I think some people get some U.S. access there, and you just kind of go there to try to seek help because you have nothing, right?
Not 100%. And we're gonna cover some because this is why the Ha'amonga is also important. It is a tool for tracking the seasons, like we mentioned, and it connects us to the Americas. But the question comes, where does the idea of the Ha'amonga come from? And this is I can't express this how important this is. So this is some of the work that the Vita Fale has done. Is as we go to the left here real quick, this is how the Ha'amonga tracks the seasons. It tracks the
Hmm.
movement of the sun, right? And it tracks those movements, and that's how you track the seasons through the months, as you can see through here. And then something that's very important is you look at this double V. And if you see here, those who are watching, you see this, my mouse, you follow, there's a V going in this direction, and there's a V going in the opposite direction. That double V was etched on the top of the Ha'amonga. It's been lost, it's been documented, but that weathered
Mm.
away over time, right? And so that double V is actually critical. And you find that double V in the Americas as well. Here's like a Olmec ruin has the
Yeah.
double V, the pointing of the V in there. But to understand how significant the Ha'amonga is, the Ha'amonga is a representation on earth of what's in the heavens. And that is, you see these four stars, which is part of the Orion. That was
Hmm.
a very important part. And then this middle part is the Toloa, or the Southern Cross, right
Hmm.
in the middle of the double V. What's shown here, what the Vita Fale is showing here, is this is the framework by which Polynesians conducted navigation, right? And if you notice, the Ha'amonga in the sky, these four stars, which is part of Orion, it cuts into the equator, north and south. This is one of the reasons why Polynesians were able to navigate in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. For half of the year, you used the Ha'amonga Maui, and then
Mm.
the other half of the year, you used Maui's hook, because as
Mm.
the Earth rotates and where the Earth lies. So that is not the knowledge that the Thompson
Nainoa
guy
Thompson.
used to
Yeah.
navigate. He used the Polynesian, the Micronesian, which, hey, it works, and it worked using direction and using those things. But just to be clear, you could use a compass and you could use GPS to go from Hawaii to Tahiti, but that's not how the Polynesians of the past
Correct.
did it. And when you understand this, And the reason why this is important to our viewers and to our listeners, if you don't understand this, you not only don't understand our connection to the Americas, you don't understand how and why our ancestors behaved a certain way, but then you won't understand why the Tamafakava is structured and built the way it is. These are
Mm.
things that are connect. This knowledge is reflected in every aspect of ancient Polynesian religious, government, social structure, and which is why it seems silly, but it matters to understand how our ancestors navigated. Just wanted to point that out. Anything on that, Masi, before I back out of this?
Nope. I think you did it really well explaining that that's the Polynesian way of navigating. So, and right, that's the perks of never being colonized. We were able to retain information to make it to the 21st century, right?
Absolutely. Did I actually close? I may have accidentally closed the uh, oh no, it's still open. How come it won't show me Grok's research here? It shows here that it's open. Well,
Man, a lot of props to
the
Grok, man.
I know.
That was really detailed, right? Like
Yes.
we, I've always kind of knew it why Tongatapu, but it's good that Gronk has put it
And
together
that's
for
just the
us to.
first part. That's just the first
Yep.
part, Masi. We have more. I'll read the next one.
Okay.
Okay. The agricultural advantages. The island's thick, fertile soil, deposited from volcanic ash of neighboring volcanoes, supported intensive cultivation of staples like yams, taros, bananas, and coconuts, making it a productive base despite its cooler climate compared to northern Tongan islands. This fertility allowed for surplus production, sustaining a large population and enabling tribute systems where goods flowed inward. Historical features like the Ha'monga Maui Trilithon, a solar observatory, aided agricultural timing for planting and harvesting, tying celestial navigation to farming efficiency. In contrast to Samoa and Fiji, which had slower population growth due to larger but less uniformly arable land and more varied topography. Tongatapu's consistent soil quality and flat landscape supported denser settlement, economic stability, crucial for empire maintenance.
Wow.
What are your
Nice.
thoughts there?
It makes sense because Tongatapu, because I'm thinking, man, if you're having a large, especially when you're still requiring everyone to travel to Tongatapu, you're having all of your subjects from all over the Polynesian Empire, the Tu'i Empire, coming to Tongatapu. Dude, there's probably we probably had maybe hundred of thousands of people in just in Tongatapu. When you talk about urbanization, then you're talking about maybe little plots of land that you're reusing for different crops to maintain and sustain people for big events like the Polo Polo and the Inasi. No other island can produce that quick of harvest than any other island, and that we just all witnessed it today. There was an explosion of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai. That was just the explosion and the minerals and the vitamins from that thick asphalt that's hit Tongatapu. It just let's just say fertilize it on steroids of
Yes.
Tongatapu, and we just saw it, like that's probably what's happening throughout. Let's just say that wasn't we only say it's a phenomenon now because we have scientists from other worlds saying, "Oh, this is crazy." That was probably happening during the Tangaloa Tuitonga era for so many years. It's why Tonga is so fertile with crops, and that's the reason why Tongatapu was chosen. Because it had to support hundreds of thousands of people, you know, and you can only do that if you have really good soil. And not only that, because usually when you do farming, after you harvest a certain area, you really can't plant anything else. But in Tongatapu, it's very unique because the nutrients is still so strong within that same plot. You can go ahead and plant something else right after.
Right
So
after.
in a small area and still get a large amount of crop that will produce a good amount to sustain. Dude, you can call it sustain the visitors from the Polynesian nation from other islands. So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts there, Dua.
Yeah. And let me ask this. I'm going to ask this question to Grok, but um, going along with what you're saying, what makes unique, and I think we had this discussion either just from going online, my last live, or maybe on one of our last shows we were together, Masi, on how unique Tonga is as a core. What other coral
Mm,
island in Polynesia or possibly in the Pacific, a coral reef island of reasonable size right next to volcanic activity
mm,
that allows for the richness of the soil that Tongatapu has. Right? And one of the things here is just the consistency. So really, though other people say, oh yeah, Tonga is not as big, Tonga doesn't have the mountains, but according to Grok, it's actually an advantage
mm,
because the level of output and the consistency of the soil and the topography means you can specialize in a farming technique and apply it across the board throughout Tongatapu, and you can get high yield. Where it sounds like if you have varying elevations, different types of topography, that means, oh, in this area, you can only plant this type of thing because of the topography
yes.
and the
Yeah.
type of soil. But on Tonga Tapu, you can grow things at a large scale and have high output for
Mm,
a small area. So we already covered kind of like the geographic and the military and the naval advantages earlier. Now we're looking that Tongatapu is actually high output. And some of the early descriptions of Tongatapu by Abel Tasman and all these guys, they said it was extremely well cultivated, meaning
mm,
you go on this island, it is high production, high yield
yeah.
farming going on by the
Yeah.
people,
It
right?
it was I don't know who said it. I don't know if it's I don't know if somebody said this or a European explorer said it, but it was like the Garden of Eden, literally.
Yeah.
Like that's how fertile it was in
Yeah, because
Tongatapu.
where else are you going to get that mix? Now that we're having this conversation, what other island coral reef that has the richness of volcanic soil but flat across the board?
Mm,
Like I don't know, I can't think of an island right now that kind of matches that. And it's relatively isolated, right? But I mean, to
mm,
me, significant advantages. But oh, the 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 one thing I wanted to look was because I think one of our viewers shelf life of Ufi or yams in Tonga. Because the other thing that someone had mentioned why Tonga Tapu was critical. Um, so look right here. Let me share this instead. You know, because we talk about Ufi, yeah, it's the preferred thing of the Tuitonga and so forth. But someone had shared another reason why Ufi is such a big deal.
Eh,
And honestly, I'm not aware of another Polynesian island that or group of islands that grows ufi like in Tonga, Masi, where they grow it
yeah.
to like the 6 foot long and stuff. Are you aware of like other islands that grow it to that level?
Nope. Never
Okay.
seen it. The only ones I've seen is the Ufivao in Haamoa, and they're
So
small
here's
little
the
balls.
yeah. So here's the interesting thing. He said Ufi, also spelled Ufi, is the Tongan name for yam, primarily referring to that's the scientific name of it. Dioscorea alata, greater yam or water yam, a staple crop in Tonga with deep cultural significance. It's often harvested seasonally and stored for extended periods to provide food security outside the main growing season. Shelf life of ufi or yams. In traditional Tongan and broader Pacific Island context, fresh ufi or yams can have a relatively long shelf life compared to many other crops when handled properly.
That's the important word right there. Properly.
Yes, under good traditional storage, ufi pits in Manua,
There we
right?
go.
Example, in barns, shaded, ventilated structures, yams can last 2 to 6 months
Oh
after
snap!
harvest, sometimes up to 6 months or more for planting seeds. Losses typically start low, but can rise to 30 to 50% after 6 months due to sprouting, rot, and weight loss. Without proper conditions, shelf life drops significantly, often to just weeks if exposed to heat, moisture, or poor ventilation. For comparison, some general sources note raw yams last about 5 to 7 days at room temperature or up to 1 month in cooler. But these are not optimized for tropical Pacific varieties like Ufi. In Tonga, yams are stored fresh, not refrigerated for months without modern cooling thanks to their natural dormancy period. So, Ufi was an extremely important, and this could be the other thing, Masi, why Ufi was so important. It was recognized to be high shelf life, long shelf life.
Mm,
And
yeah,
and so you have Ufi because it provides economic stability as well.
yeah, yeah.
So that's another important thing. Once again, it's that economic impact and influence that goes a long way. But one of our viewers had mentioned that I think in a comment in the past. So I thought, oh,
That's
wonder
awesome.
for
That's awesome
another
feedback.
reason. Yeah. So all right, let's see what's next. Well, let's see what else that
Grok.
Grok provided.
All right.
You wanna? Is this
Size and
whose turn is it? Your turn or your
my
turn?
turn.
Right?
My turn. Yep. Size and population advantages. At 257 square kilometers, the largest in Tonga, Tongatapu housed about 70% of the kingdom's population, providing a concentrated labor force for construction, agriculture, and the Imperial Navy. Ancient Mu'a, the empire's core, spanned 1,170 hectares with an estimated 6,700 to 7,600 residents, representing a low density urban center that facilitated administrative control. This scale allowed for monumental architecture like royal tombs and forts, symbolizing power, while Samoa and Fiji had larger overall land acres, potentially supporting more people. Tongatapu's centrality and population density enabled quicker mobilization of resources and warriors, giving it an edge in maintaining hegemony, hegemony over fragmented archipelagos.
Yes. So this is the thing that's interesting here. Yes, Samoa and Fiji could have larger populations spread out over a larger piece of land. Tongatapu can maintain higher density. This is And this goes back to that study, Mussy, that we looked at in the Toloa area,
Mm-hmm.
where people were shocked, or at least the scientists were shocked, that, you know, close to 100 AD to 100 BC, they were finding what? Urbanization, low density
Yes.
urbanization
From the
on
laser.
Tongatapu,
Yeah.
right? And then why were they able to have, low density urban centers on Tongatapu? Well, it's because of the soil. It's because of the flat land
Mm.
and the richness of the soil. You can have, though it's a smaller population, but when you look at it per capita of resource and people, it's actually more dense, and you can have uniformity of people. And that's why, and you mentioned it, Masi, the first time we looked at ruins, what does ruin say? You have a healthy labor force. You can mobilize labor. You can mobilize resources. And Tongatapu
Provides
could
all of that.
facilitate that,
Mm.
right? You could bring, like we're looking at the let's lose the Pai Pai Terea. It is documented that it was a lot of Samoan labor,
Yep.
right? To come in and to build these things. So what do you got to do when you bring a big labor force? You got to feed them. So you bring
House
them to
them.
Tongatapu, you're able to feed them in Tongatapu because why? Surplus of agricultural production. Per capita, it can facilitate that. Oh, and by the way, they have a crop that they grow and spend the time that can last 6 months.
It's in the Ufi pits somewhere in Pai Pai Terea somewhere.
Exactly. So we start to
We-
see how, like, dude, when you're just looking from a very shallow, oh, Tongatapu is nothing. Well, maybe that's why you didn't have a civilization or empire centered where you come from, because you aren't looking at what you need to have a productive center of an empire. You need food. You need a navy. You need consistency and the ability to feed large amounts of people. Imagine all the people coming for the Inasi and the Polo Polo. How are you going to feed these people?
Mm.
Yeah, they're going to bring food, but they're traveling long distances. When they show up, the food's got to be there on the island. So maybe that's why they said we're going to meet on Tongatapu, because Tongatapu has
We
the
can.
economic
Mm.
capacity to feed these people. Anyways,
Mm.
those are just some of the things there. Anything you wanted to add on this one, Masi?
No, I think it explained it really clearly. Just the advantages of Tongatapu. It's a lot of it has to do location, the harbors, and how rich the soil is.
Yep. Defensive. I think this is my turn to read this one, or
Yep.
whose turn
Yep.
is it? Yeah. Defensive advantages. Natural defenses include steep southern cliffs, surrounding coral reefs that hindered enemy landings, and man made earthwork forts with ditches 5 to 8 feet meters deep, the deepest on the island, built during periods of internal strife and expansion. The capital's relocation to Mu'a La Paja around the 13th century, excuse me, was motivated by security needs, offering a safer site away from assassination risks at earlier capitals like Heketa. Compared to Samoa's more exposed volcanic terrains, or Fiji's diverse landscapes vulnerable to guerrilla warfare, Tongatapu's flat, reef protected isolation reduced invasion threats while allowing defensive fortifications to protect the ruling elite and tribute stockpiles.
Oh, well, now we know that why they moved. That makes sense why they came to Mua area, because Heketa, that's where the Ha'amonga is at. It's really right on
Yep.
the coast. So,
Right off
you
of
know,
deep sea,
deep sea.
you can
Yep.
come in quickly. leave
and get
very
out.
quickly.
Yep. So it makes sense that why Mua was probably the longest Tuitonga residence because it was safe inland, and the only way to really come in was that through the lagoon, which is kind of difficult to come in and also to leave. So relatively safe place in Tongatapu. So it explains why Tonga was whispered through our ancestors by Hikudeo to them to this is the place.
This is the
This is the
place.
place. This is before the scientific and Gronk gathering all this data. This is why Hikudeo said this is the place.
Not 100%. Think this might be the. Oh no, there's two more. Read
Okay.
read this one, Mas.
Isolation and strategic advantages. Tongatapu's relative isolation within the archipelago minimized external threats, yet its position as the ancestral homeland and sacred abode of deities, Tangaloa, conferred spiritual legitimacy, unifying the empire under the Tuitonga dynasty as the cradle of Polynesia, with settlements dating back to 888 BC. It held cultural primacy. Unlike Samoa or Fiji, where local resources were often retained, Samoan tools were locally sourced. Tongatapu became a tribute hub, with 66% of elite stone tools imported from distant islands, underscoring its political and economic pull. This isolation fostered internal stability, enabling a unique centralized ar- archaic was it
Archaic. Yeah.
archaic state of Oceania, with a powerful navy of vessels like the Tonga Fuesia, carrying up to 100 men, projecting influence over 500,000 square kilometers. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I have for there, Tua.
Yeah. So really what it's saying here is, you know, one of the reasons why you would stay on Tongatapu is if it's tied to the history of Tangaloa, right?
Mm,
Like it is the birthplace of Polynesia, so it holds a sacred role in it. And then once again, because of that, it was always a central hub for trade, and it's kind of like Silicon Valley, right? once once a space becomes known and attracts the talent to be there, the incentive is to keep it there, like Silicon Valley. Despite California being basically a third world country, it is still the number one place for entrepreneurship and new
mm.
technology. Other places are growing, but it's still number one. Oh, see here, before you go to your comment, want to recognize our paying member, Mika. Appreciate it. Mika says, Ofa tumalo nga tamay ngawe, keep up the hard work. Very important to keep our tala whakafonua. Whakafonua. So malo apito Mika.
Malo Mika
Appreciate the
Losiade.
support.
Appreciate your constant support. Popo, Malo.
Any thoughts on that, Masi? That's kind of what I kind of took out of that analysis by Brock.
Um, I find it very interesting this line saying that its ancestral homeland, sacred abode of deities, conferred spiritual legitimacy. It was legitimate. It was legitimized Tongatapu through Hikudeo, and that's why this was the place. So I found that very interesting to, you know, that Tongatapu was chosen, and I know it talked about the 66% of elite stone tools imported. We went through a detailed study on that, so Grok brought that up. So hey, man, I mean it's very the signs are speaking empire. I mean, just this is the center of the empire of Polynesia, Tongatapu, man. So where the Tuitonga, Tangaloa, all of the our our Ho'akis, our founders were in Tongatapu.
Yep. Let's see. This looks like the last one here. You want to read that for us, Masi?
Yep. Overall empire building benefits. Despite other islands like Samoa and Fiji offering more diverse resources or larger populations, Tongatapu's combination of factors made it the irreplaceable capital. Its maritime infrastructure supported a navy driven empire, while spiritual and historical significance ensured loyalty through tributes like the Inasi ceremony. Political innovations such as dividing sacred and secular powers and al- alliances via marriages with Samoan nobles for fine mats further centralized authority. This allowed Tonga to influence regions from the Solomon Islands to French Polynesia. That's for all of our Eastern Polynesia friends. Re- Reversing earlier dynamics where it learned from neighbors and establishing it as a transmission center for ideas, goods, and people in prehistoric Oceania. Awesome. What's your
I
thoughts,
don't
Tua?
know. That's pretty compelling, right? It's pretty compelling when you look at it. It's like, oh, so there were very important strategic advantages of maintaining Tongatapu as the capital, right?
Mm,
Even when the Tuitonga moved his residence to Haamoa, the capital was still
Tongatapu.
Tongatapu,
And
and
the
he would
Inasi and the
return.
Polo Polo. Yes, the Inasi and Polo Polo was done in Tongatapu.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought that was an important question to answer because that's some of the critiques we get is Tonga is small, insignificant,
It
Samoa
wasn't
and
bothered with.
Fiji.
It didn't get colonized because they didn't care for it. Yeah, right.
Yes.
British empires and everyone wanted to use Tonga as their docking boats.
Yes, especially Vava'u, right?
Wow.
Vava'u is probably the best natural harbor
Yeah.
in the world, or at least in the top natural harbors in the world. And when you're a naval empire like Tatu Tonga, like
Yep.
Britain was, those things are important, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I thought that was very interesting, worth the conversation, worth
Yep.
the discussion on this live digital kava session. And that is pretty much what we had on the table for tonight. Mr. Aotearoa, any closing thoughts?
No. Appreciate the conversation, Tua. This is awesome live digital kava session with our viewers. Awesome research that our assistant Grok brought up. Why Tongatapu was chosen by our ancestors through Hikureo, and just to walk through our ideas of where the Polynesian Empire started and came from and where they navigated. That was awesome to walk through that. Um, Excited to, I hope New Zealand first, the best. Hopefully they do well during this campaign. We touched a little bit about New Zealand politics and, looking forward to the next one. Thank you to our viewers and also our supporters and everyone who views our content and finds some, happiness and some knowledge and are just thrilled about history, just like Dua and I. I hope you guys find some gratification from what we do. We love talking about our history and, critiquing our ideas and having a positive exchange. Ofatu to everybody, but that's my closing comments. Malo.
Yo, Malo Abito Masi. Just want to echo that. Want to say thank you to all of the viewers and the listeners for all the support, all the likes, the shares, the comments. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, follow us on all of our social media. Those are little things that go a very long way. We are extremely grateful to our paying members of the channel. Still is, surprising and shocking to me that people are willing to invest their hard earned money. We
Mm,
Masi and I, this is not a full-time gig here. This is a part-time gig, and we have to work. And we understand that, It takes time and energy and sacrifice to contribute resources, and we're
Mm.
extremely grateful for that. Just to kind of give, supporters and haters a quick update on social media, it is a tsunami to say the least. Uh, it is documented. I can, with all transparency, say every 28 days, we get at least 600,000 views across our
Holy
social
snap.
media, right? Every 28 days. And that's just from what we track. It could be more, right? But that's where we can say at least 600,000 views. We get tens of thousands of comments and interactions. I do my very best to respond
Mm.
to comments as best as we can, but it's kind of like in waves. Sometimes we respond heavily, and then sometimes we just are busy with work and family, and we go a couple days to a week without responding, and then we come back. But really appreciate everyone's interactions, and honestly, as you can see from Grok's online research, these conversations are making an impact, right? Like AI and searching online,
Yep.
they're starting to pick up the discussions that we're having. And really, I really want to share this with all earnesty so that people understand this. We've been called racists. We've been called people who just want to cause problems. How can we be racist to Samoans when we have Samoan blood? When really
Yeah.
we're the exact same people, right? It really makes no sense. We are interested in the truth. And in all honesty, someone had asked, is this all just about pride? Right? Is it just about pride and proving a point that we're talking? I said, no, it is not. I don't believe you can have unity and that you can have oneness when you're not built on the truth. We
Yeah.
have to be built on the truth. We have to know what is our relationship with each other. And I want unity of our people. I want us to be one. And I always feel like one thing that I've found through this whole thing, Masi, a lot of people say we're one people, but when push comes to shove, they really don't think we are one people. They don't understand how we are literally the same people. We were under the same government, social, political, economic system for thousands of years. Our ancestors were intermarrying throughout the islands for thousands of years and moving. When we say on the Polynesianized podcast, we are one people, we say it in the most literal way possible and more literal than any other content creator, any other person who is an influencer. When we say we're one people, we literally mean we are one people. Samoa and Tonga, we have to get this figured out. We have to get aligned. It is very clear. I mentioned this in one of our other things. Samoa and Tonga are the pillars of the Polynesian Empire. And we have to get this alignment, get over this thing of, this side has to be the capital or this side has to be the origin. No, we just need to know where the origin is, where we come from, where was the center, because until Samoa and Tonga get aligned, don't even think about addressing our Eastern Polynesian brothers and sisters who are now, we're now, what we're
That'll
starting
be
to
a
see?
quickie. That'll be a
Yeah,
quickie.
yeah. You know what we're starting to see, the arguments now on some of our social media
Mm.
is our Samoan brothers and sisters arguing with Eastern Polynesia
Mm.
because our Samoan brothers and sisters are now starting to see the Eastern Polynesian like claims that, because Samoans always say, oh, Savaii means Hawaii. in Eastern Polynesia, and now the Eastern Polynesia is like, no, Hawaii is named after Hawaii from Eastern Polynesia. So we really got to figure this out. We got to get aligned, because if we don't figure that out in Western Polynesia, then we can never be united across the board. And want to recognize Mel again. Thank you for being a paid member. Love your show. It's not biased, but honoring and trying to put the puzzle of origin back and deciphering the correct story. That's what we're all
Malo,
about, Mel.
Mel.
100%. Right?
No, yeah.
Go ahead, Masi.
No, I was just gonna just kind of jump on because I do see sometimes those comments people saying, "Oh, what's are you doing this pride? Like, what's the purpose?" And all these. It's like, dude, it's crazy that people are not willing to learn or even try to understand our complex history. It means that they're willing. They like to, and some people they like to stay, let's just say, no identity, identityless, whatever word you can say. They like to stay, they some people like to be colonized. They like to be colonized by the Germans, so they learn German history, and that's their identity. It's too much work if they want to go back and learn our true ancient Polynesia. And to me, I just find that very mind blowing that people don't want to. They see it as pride and stuff because what they've understand of history, they're not willing to discuss because they want to stay with no identity. They want to stay with no history because their history is probably, if they were in American Samoa, it's American history. That's all they know. If they're in French Polynesia, it's French history. That's all I want to know. And I'll just pick snippets of our true ancient history. So to me, I find it very interesting that people will say that, and if they see it as prideful, it's like what you said. Dua, when we say we're one people, we're literally one people, and we're just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle of our history. Because to me, people who don't know our history, I'll take somebody who knows our history of Polynesia to make better choices of in life than somebody who's going to be, it's almost like they're aimless in life, don't know who they are, because they can be one person today and another person the next day, because if America takes over the next day, there'll be this one. If America loses the other day, there'll be that
Wishy
whatever that
washy.
country is. Wishy-washy, man. So that's
Yeah.
just my idea, my thoughts. People who do, that's how I view them. I could be wrong, but usually I encounter people like them. They really have no core or have no base to stand on because their foundation is not firm in their
Yeah.
identity. So
No,
that's just me.
100%.
I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. And really, and that was a very long close for me. Sorry, Masi, but I'll kind of wrap it up with this.
Mm,
If you really believe our people navigated to the extent that we navigated, if you really believe that we were trading resources at the level that we were doing, if you really believe that our people were sophisticated and understood governments, diplomacy, warfare, and all these things, then it's not a huge thing to think we were one nation, because all the things you're describing is our national identity things.
mm.
And if you have issues with the idea that we were one nation, then don't talk to me about how great we were as navigators. Don't talk to me about the shared traditions that we have. Don't talk to me about the linguistical similarities that we have, and the intermarrying that we were having for thousands of years, because you don't really believe that. Because if you really believe that, you would see that we were one nation, or at least open to the idea, right? And so that is what we'll end with. Want to say thank you to everyone. As always, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, right? Be bold,
Yes,
and
sir.
always stay curious. Peace.
See ya.